It should be good to go.
Okay, thanks. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Welcome to the March 17th, 2026 Planning Board meeting. We are fully remote tonight, and if you want to log
Should be
in.
good to go.
Okay, thanks. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Welcome
You
to
guys
the
have
March
feedback?
17th, 2026 Planning Board meeting. We are fully remote tonight, and if you want to log
Patrick,
in.
do you hear that?
Okay, thanks. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
Patrick, did you hear that feedback?
I did. I don't know what's going on there. Give me a second.
Okay,
No, it
that'll
was
be hard.
coming. I think it was coming from Mr. Federico's phone, maybe.
It seems to have stopped.
Okay. All right. If anybody in the audience would like to log in for public comment, there is a link on the town website under the calendar, under planning board. Welcome. Tonight, first on our agenda is 20 Barefoot Road. I think tonight we did get a lot of, I have to read the public hearing notice. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Sections 5 and 9, the Northborough Planning Board will hold public hearings on March 17th for the purpose of seeking public opinion. Oh, that's a zoning amendment. On purpose of the application for a special permit for light industrial use, special permit with site plan approval, and special permit per groundwater protection overlay district bylaw submitted by 30 Barefoot Road LLC for a development site that will include a portion of the land from 30 Barefoot Road, a portion of the land from 230 Solomon Pond Road, and a portion of the land from 10 Barefoot Road. The applicant seeks approval to construct a single-story light industrial building of approximately 60,500 square feet, 115 parking spaces, and associated improvements on a newly created lot consisting of 5.2 acres in the industrial zoning district and groundwater to overlay district. Okay. Welcome. Hi, Quentin.
All
Would you
right.
like to introduce yourself? And
Yes.
thank you.
Okay. So members of the board, uh, town staff, and community members watching or listening in, very much appreciate you having us here tonight to present this project. I'd like to make a presentation of our proposal, and please feel free to interject with questions or comments as we go along, and I'm happy to refer to specific documents or pull up whatever you choose from there. But as was read in the public hearing notice, we're before you tonight with a proposal to enable the construction of a modern light industrial facility on the northeast corner of Northborough at the interchange with Interstate 290. The building will measure approximately 60,500 square feet. It's a single-story building, an infill project within the existing industrial zone. And we believe it represents a good opportunity for economic growth within the town without a corresponding heavy demand on town resources. Just to set the stage, we are having hearings and have filed applications for two applications for essentially three approvals. And so for 20 Barefoot Road, we have a special permit with site plan approval before you. The special permit is related to allowing light manufacturing and warehouses uses. We have a special permit for industrial development within groundwater protection overlay area 2. And concurrently and related, we also have a site plan application for 10 Barefoot Road. 10 Barefoot Road application is related to the application, so they're being reviewed concurrently by the board. I am joined tonight by certain members of my project team. from High Point, I have Jesse Aguilar and Katarina Creamer on the call, who are landscape and civil engineers. They will correct me or add color where necessary. And additionally, we have Adam Baldolari of Fletcher Tilton, who is our land use counsel, but we're supported by a team that you can see that goes well beyond the people here. And I appreciate the work they've done to date. So just to set the stage, we've actually been in Northborough for about 5.5 years. We started with 30 Barefoot Road. When we bought the building, it was the top photo, which was vacant, weathered, old, and not really landscaped. We then found a new scientific light industrial company to occupy, and we basically completely refreshed not only the aesthetic of the building itself and restored some of its function, but also added a lot of planting and landscape improvements to soften the view from Barefoot Road. And so this is just to say that while we've not been before the board, we have been listening to what the community wants and needs, and we have tried to prepare the applications before you tonight that are consistent with those wants and needs. So this is an aerial of the site. The subject property is, we'll study it in a moment, but it's in this corner here, which is bounded by Solomon Pond Road and Interstate 290. The site is bounded by 10 Barefoot Road to the south, which is home to the U.S. Geological Survey, Northeast headquarters. And then to the west is 30 Barefoot Road, which is home to Solmedics, which is a high-end manufacturer of dental equipment. And then across Solomon Pond is 5 Goddard Road, which is home to a regional HVAC installation company. Our vision here is to create a new campus-like setting by adding a building that is consistent and cohesive with the existing 2 buildings. So again, just to orient you, we're facing northeast. This is the interchange, Solomon Pond Road. The buildings to the left and right exist today, and the building in the back in the center is the new proposed project at 20 Barefoot Road. Save and accept a few revisions. This is by and large a representative rendering of what you're going to see in the architectural plan, the landscaping plans, and the civil plans. So it's largely true to grade, retaining walls, where the site pole locations are. It is sort of our visual representation of the technical drawings that we're going to look at. From plan view, this is the new layout of the site. Don't worry about not being able to see all the small text here. I can come back to these, but effectively we have this new building in the corner, and this is the proposed A&R resulting from that. And so what you can see here is we have a new Lot A, which is 30 Barefoot Road. We have Lot B, which is the largely rectangular lot here, which is 10 Barefoot Road. And then we have Lot C, which is the subject project of 20 Barefoot Road. All of these lots, as we go forward, this A&R will be presented formally to the board for review. We'll provide calculations of lot irregularity and dimensional conformance, but they are believed to be A&R lots. So I first want to talk about the area. What you see in the dashed lines are the current lot lines that are being removed and will no longer be lot lines after this A&R is endorsed and recorded. And what effectively is happening is that this trapezoidal shape here is currently owned by 10 Barefoot and serves that building, and now will become part of the 20 Barefoot development site. And practically speaking, what that means is that the 10 Barefoot parking lot needs to be reconfigured. So on the left side of this image, you see what is existing today, and on the right side is what's proposed. And so on the left side, I'll call your attention to the fact that in the back of the building, we have effectively what are 2 drive aisles that are dead end And both of these drive aisles in the back are 100% dedicated to the U.S. Geological Survey. So this is a fenced lot that they use to store their equipment and for their employees. And this is the regional headquarters for their business. And so all of the site plan modifications are taking into consideration retaining their requirements to make this work for them.
Can
As
I
you can
just ask
see,
a quick
uh,
question?
yes.
I'm having trouble following your cursor.
Oh,
Is
I'm
it
sorry.
the same color as the diagram? Is there a way to change that or highlight that?
Let me see if I can. I don't, if anyone has feedback for me so I can do it faster, let me know, but I'm looking here in the controls.
Anybody know how to do that? Or is anybody else having trouble? Let me ask that.
Here, is this helpful, Millie? I'm going to try this tool. Can you see the red now?
I can. Thank you.
Okay. Hopefully I don't lose track of that. So I'm going to back up then, Millie. So I'm talking about
Appreciate it.
this section here, which is today it's part of 10 Barefoot,
Okay.
but in the future proposed post-development condition, it's part of 20 Barefoot. And this is the reason that we have a site plan application for 10 Barefoot, because today the U.S. Geological Society uses 2 rows of parking in the back of 10 Barefoot here. One of those rows extends up into the new development site. And these are surface parking. There's a chain link fence to provide their necessary surface protection around it, but there's not really a lot of landscaping in here. There is a comment in the review letters concerning lighting, which is an oversight that you'll see in our revisions, but there is lot lighting represented in the yellow dots today, and that lot lighting will be retained. It has to be very slightly moved, but is going to be retained in the future condition. And so in the right hand is what we are doing is we are shifting what is this old parking that you see faded below the transparent layer, and we are combining that into the new lot here. And the goal here is basically retain the function for U.S. Geological Survey and to basically leave it better than we found it, right? We're not trying to create an enormous development project because this is sort of a related project, but we do see opportunities to improve this parking lot as part of the relocation of spaces to accommodate the new development site. Yes, Amy?
Quick question.
Yeah.
I see on the right side now you have the trees. Did they agree to remove the fencing and put up landscaping?
So we've agreed to add the trees. So Amy, the fencing is really important to the U.S. Geological Survey. They have to keep people out of there. And so the proposal here is basically reconfigure the existing fence, which is a chain link fence. And we appreciate that that's not the preferred aesthetic of most human beings. And so what we're proposing here is that we will add, and this is in response to a design review committee comment, is that we will add this row of planting. It's actually going to be outside of the chain link fence, Amy, but it
Yes.
will soften that view, not only from the 2 properties, but also on the south side here, if you're looking from Barefoot Road down back into that parking lot, you won't just look at chain link fence, you'll look at 3 trees there. And so this was a plan revision that the design review committee did not see, but it came up in our conversations that's now reflected in our application with the planning board.
Thank you.
And then just to point out a couple other things, whereas these were previously dead-end aisles, meaning that if you park up here, you can't just circulate, you have to do a 3-point turn and head out. We've now found a way to connect the 2 aisles, which allows circulation, which is just frankly a better design. And then we've not reduced the parking area at all. We gained 3 spaces, actually. We weren't like trying to find more spaces, but it's just the way it worked out. And so the goal was basically accommodate that parking within the same footprint, improve the landscaping, improve the circulation to the extent that we can, keep the lighting, which you will see in a plan revision from us after this, and basically overall comply with what the US Geological Society needs, but try to make this a better site. And I'll talk about drainage as well, but drainage is also reduced. Yes, Bill.
So, a couple quick questions. I appreciate the flow there. That definitely makes sense. Is that all within the chain link fence area, or would they have to go through the chain link fence and then come back out? Where is the chain link fence and all that?
So they have an existing, if you actually look, it's written right here. Sorry, it's so small, Bill, but they have a gate here. So that is their
Right.
controlled access. So that gate actually remains and connects here. It's just that we didn't redraw it because we intend for the actual same gate to continue to exist. But that's their controlled access. So basically, they're able to circulate within their lot, but they're still going in and out of the same controlled access.
Okay, so the fenced in area is going to be that entire back lot.
Correct, which is what it
Okay.
is today. It's just a
Yep.
different shape. Millie?
Okay.
And
Well,
Oh,
you
sorry.
have
sorry.
back by
One other thing, real
Sorry.
quick,
oh,
Yeah.
sorry,
Millie. Sorry.
no worries.
The area that you're going to be eliminating in that parked area, that you have in gray there, I'm assuming you're going, there have been vehicles parked there for years. I'm assuming you're going to do soil testing when you remove that asphalt
This here?
underneath. Yes.
Presumably we could. I mean, we already did environmental studies on the site, on both sites, and, don't have any concerns, there. What would be the concern is that there's some leakage from something that wasn't discovered?
Right.
Hmm.
Okay.
As we've learned in our fire station project.
Well, we did do environmental studies, already, and we could certainly look at, doing others if necessary. Certainly, we're a bit aligned in that, Bill, in that we have a lot of interest to protect, and so if that would be warranted, it would certainly be done by us.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Millie?
So two questions. I believe that you are actually reducing the number of parking spaces and possibly the impervious space. Is that correct with this alignment?
So the parking space, so impervious cover is reduced by 318 square feet. But
Okay.
the parking count, so I'm just talking, the counts that you see here stated 88 spaces and 91 spaces only relate to
Yeah.
the modified area. You can refer to our dimensional tables for the overall parking, but I
Sure.
felt it was most informative for the board in the presentation context to focus on the modified area so we don't lose sight of
Okay.
what's changing. So we're reducing impervious cover, increasing spaces by 3. Not intentionally, it's not like the use is changing, we need that. That's just the way the
Right.
layout worked out. And then finally, as I'll show you in a moment, we're also reducing the amount of drainage flow that is being deposited in the existing drainage basin that serves this parking area.
Okay. Another quick question is on the back of where it says 7-pin oak. What
Yeah.
are those? They look like C's. What is that?
Sorry. So the 7-pin oak refers to the trees. That's a type of oak tree,
Oh,
and it's just a kind of a call out to that species name here. So those are the 7 trees here. The C
okay.
represents a compact parking space, so it's a little bit narrow.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
we're less than the 10% compact parking space, that the bylaw permits. And so it just indicates that it's a narrower space.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure. And then one other thing to call out is that we'll talk about this in the context of 20, but the landscaping buffers here between the two uses are constrained. We will be and will be clarifying a waiver request with respect to the landscape buffers between industrial uses. What's not well represented on plan, but is in the image, is that there is a significant grade difference between these two
Mhm.
uses. So you're not only getting a bit of landscape buffer, you're also getting the visual broken plane of two different heights of uses. And so this is something that we talked about pretty extensively with the design review committee. And I think that they're supportive in their recommendation. At least as it relates to 20 barefoot, but it's really the same going on at 10 barefoot, which is that this is a constrained site. We're trying to do the right thing. We believe that the landscape buffer is adequate. And look, we also have two kind of cooperating users here who both believe this plan is in the best interest, but just want to call that out since it's noted on this plan.
Can you go back to that previous picture? I just want to kind of
Yep.
get a grasp on that. Okay.
So these
Yeah.
are where those C parking spaces are, Millie,
Yeah.
and
Thank
then
you.
this is a slight grade change. There's a little hill here, and then I'll talk about this in a moment, but this is a split face retaining wall that generally varies across that around 10 foot on average in the middle, 10 to
Okay.
11 feet. And so it's like a pretty dramatic height difference. Whereas if you're standing in the 10 barefoot lot, you're not looking at a car bumper right
Right.
on 20 barefoot, if that makes sense, and
Mhm.
vice versa, so.
Got it.
I just
Thank
had a
you.
question for Bob while it was there, like with a 10-foot retaining wall, do you need a fence on it for safety?
Mm.
I don't know if Bob's still here.
Well,
I know
I'll comment on it because Lori did, but if Bob has it is a comment in our review letter that I'm happy to address and respond to.
Sure.
So, the first thing is that the retaining wall is actually, so at the top of the retaining wall, let me see if I've got a better plan for this.
Is
Okay,
there a slope to that retaining wall or is it vertical?
it's vertical.
Okay.
So you're seeing the exposed face, and then above it is a landscape buffer in front of the parking spaces for 20 Barefoot Road. That retaining wall is between 1.5 and 2 feet taller than that grass there. So it's not like it's right even with the grass, whereas there's no stoppage. I feel that hazards like this exist all over the community and the region where you can drive a car somewhere you're not supposed to. I did appreciate Lori, the planning director's comment about safety there. And she had proposed, one idea was to provide a guardrail at the top of that retaining wall. I personally feel pretty strongly that that sort of derogates from the aesthetic view of the building and kind of impacts our landscape buffer. And so what we plan to propose in our response is that as an additional kind of buffer, we would add wheel stops on all of those spaces so that you have just one more. You got the curb, you got the wheel stop, the curb, and then you also have, that retaining wall being slightly higher than the grade there. Yeah, Lori.
Um, it wasn't clear to me that the retaining wall was going to be higher than the finished grade, so that was a surprise. I don't
Okay.
know if that's clear in your design.
I don't think it was mentioned, which was why I was curious if it was vertical or sloped.
Well, so you got the top of wall is it's not explicitly called out, Lori,
Okay.
but I just switched to the grading plan here to try to show where it is that way. So you've got the top of wall at 253.5 feet. TW stands for top of wall. And then in between, you can see the grades of effectively like what's a water quality scale swale ranging from 251 to 252 to 253. And so over in this area, it's like 2.5 foot difference overall where that landscape buffer dips down, so to speak, and the wall's higher. And then over here in this corner, Lori, it's closer to even with the top of wall, the grade. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah. Well, what I'm seeing is on the opposite side, it
Yeah.
says top of wall is 251. So it looks like the wall is going down with the elevation.
Well, I guess it
But
does go slightly down. Yeah, it's 252 here. You're right. It does go down slightly. So it's not as high. You are right. You're right.
and my
Yeah.
comment would be that that the guardrail would be in front of the wall. So I wouldn't want the guardrail to be mounted on top of the wall.
Right, right.
Because the idea is to protect the wall as well as prevent cars from going over the wall.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a tough trade-off, right? Like you can drive a car into the front of a store or restaurant all over town, and that's a real risk. And I want public safety to be here, but I do also care about the aesthetic of adding, a 30-inch height structure across the front there. I generally prefer not to have that. And so I'm open to studying it further. I mean, to getting some more input and coming back to the board. I'm all like, I guess what I'm saying is I'm open, I'm listening. I also view it as a trade-off. And I think that we have these safety concerns, everywhere we drive cars.
You might be able to use even some landscaping or something
Yep.
as well.
Or
The
baller.
retaining wall a little higher, like, so then it all matches, but I mean, I think it would stop too from like the snowplows pushing it over into the other parking lot or.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, maybe we could look at like a wood, kind of fence type retaining wall that's like a little bit more natural of a guardrail. And like, the trade-off would be that like structurally it may not meet like the profile and standard. What I really would like to not have is the galvanized
Yep.
steel guardrail that you see along a highway. I don't think that's the appropriate aesthetic for a development like this. And I think it's frankly just a little bit overkill for what the safety concern is.
Yep.
But presumably, for instance, like you see in the bottom of this rendering, there's an existing wood post and beam fence along this section of Barefoot Road. Maybe that would be an aesthetic that would kind of meet the middle ground of providing that roll away
Yeah.
kind of protection that would stop public safety, but also just being a little bit more softer and transparent to let the landscaping show through. Laura, are you kind of open to that concept?
I'm totally open to like an attractive wooden guardrail.
Hmm.
I just feel like there needs to be something to prevent the cars from going over.
Well,
Okay.
I think you mentioned wheel stops. And I honestly I feel like there's an aesthetic quality to this, which if there's a visual stop, then the wheel stops should serve a purpose. And
Well,
the visual itself.
I do believe it's also in the building code.
Oh,
But it may be a fence on top of the retaining wall. I did get a text message from Bob Frederico saying that he's trying to join. I don't know if he is the GFDTO in the audience. Might be.
Do you want me to bring GFTO in?
Might as well see if it's him.
Actually, I can't. I must not have the ability. It won't let me bring him in. It just says I can report him.
is Carter in? And I can't see him?
I see
Yeah,
Carter.
I'm here.
Okay. Hi, Carter.
Hello.
Patrick, can you bring in GFDTO?
Yeah, he
Well,
says he can see the meeting, but he can't oh he's saying nothing in code required for fence. So I misspoke on that one.
Interesting. Okay.
I think the wood post and beam would
Suffice.
be,
Yeah.
that's what they have in the 135 fields and, between the cars and the soccer field.
I'm open to that. I just don't want it to become so big of an instruction that it sort of takes away from the landscape and the aesthetic and the view, because
Right.
it's, again, keeping in mind that site that line of sight where it's higher is we've got shrubs planted and we really want to see the shrubs. We don't want to see, so much of a guardrail.
Oh, it's
I
bomb.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I finally made it.
Stressful.
My apologies, everybody. I'm on my second computer and second cell phone. It's got to be, this is an Italian household and not an Irish household. So I'm cursed today.
I was going to say you sweared.
Anyway, sorry about all the confusion. I am here. There is no distinct requirement for some sort of a safety rail over the retaining wall. I do agree that safety is important, but I don't have a requirement. I think that requirement needs to be worked out through the board and the applicant.
Mhm.
Okay. What is,
Okay.
well, okay.
And your feeling is that fencing, if you were to put that up, would pretty much go along the entire length and around the corner for the retaining wall?
I'd strongly prefer it not to go around the corner because there's not any sort of angled parking facing into that. I mean, I'd really prefer to only put it where we have head-in parking, Millie, which is really along the front only.
Makes sense.
Because the corners are where we want to dress it up even a little bit more, and I think the risk becomes much lower on the corners.
For sure.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. So I'm now zooming in on 20 Barefoot Road to orient you to the building. So we have the footprint of a 60,500 square foot building. This is the vision here is that this is a modern headquarter quality light industrial building. So, we speak of industrial and people think everything from just warehouses to factories with smokestacks. This is kind of representative of the companies that you already have along this corridor, Barefoot, Goddard, in the area where, they're making really interesting, whether it's medical devices or technology for the electric vehicle industry, whatever it may be. And functionally, the idea there is that this is nice enough for headquarter office because that's going to be some component of it, but it's also functionally works for light manufacturing, R&D, accessory or small related warehousing, which we'll get to. And so we have a single-story building, 24-foot structural clear. Importantly, like all of the loading and the stuff that doesn't look great from public right-of-ways is in the back of the building. So we have 3 dock high loading positions here. There's 1 drive-in door here in the back of the building. The dumpster pad is located here. And all of the employee parking, 115 spaces total, is located in sort of a compact area in the front of the building where the main entrance is easily accessible. Kind of as part of the design review committee process, we did locate EV parking spaces and bicycle parking spaces right up front, which I think was a really good addition because from a wayfinding perspective, if you're looking for that EV charging or that bicycle space, like you're going to find it right away the way that you're coming into the site.
Mm.
But generally speaking, employees and visitors park in this area and leave this way. And anyone that might be a vendor or a delivery driver to the building circulates in a counterclockwise manner, may back into the loading docks if necessary, and then leaves the same way. And the counterclockwise is important because it allows the drivers to look out their left mirror instead of their right mirror, which creates a hazard, a blind spot, in the truck operation. Yeah, Millie.
Quick question. Do you have like walk access ways for people who are parking, let's say, over by the retaining wall versus going through the entire parking lot? Or is that something that you can incorporate? And second question is the backup for the loading dock.
Mhm.
Is that enough turning around space? They have to back around or they're backing in?
They're circulating this way and then just backing in.
Okay.
It is enough space. Like, I am a proponent of not putting too much truck apron onto projects. I mean,
Mm,
some of these projects have enormous
right.
concrete aprons, and the reality of these businesses today is that a lot of them are just taking box trucks, Amazon, UPS, FedEx,
Mhm.
and that the 53-foot trailers, which is what you think of as a 18-wheeler on the freeway,
Right.
are very infrequent. This is not optimized to be a large warehouse building. It's not tall enough. It doesn't have many docks. It's just not going to be that. That's not going to be the user that's interested in a property like this.
Okay.
And so we've sort of optimized it to accommodate the trucks that would be necessary for this type of business, Millie.
So not 53-foot trucks
They
or
can, no, the 53-foot trucks can back into these docks, but it's not like we have a lot of them and we need a very large apron going forward in front of it, if that
Right.
makes sense.
It totally does. It
Yeah.
seems small for larger trucks like that. So sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's smaller than some of our peers would do just because our viewpoint is that too much concrete for the users we have in mind is not a good trade-off for us or frankly the community. Like, I could advocate to make this larger, but I don't think it's necessary for the type of user we're trying to attract. You can get 53-foot trailers to these docks.
Okay.
Yeah, Carter.
And the walking
Oh,
space.
sorry. Oh, the walking thing. I'm sorry.
No worries.
There's not any designated, I mean, we do have a sidewalk along the front of the building here, Millie, that we'll look at in the landscape plan. It goes along each side as well of the
Mhm.
building, with stairs here. There's not any designated crosswalks through the parking lot. I'm
Okay.
totally open to striping those. I don't think, at least. I don't know. My civil team can correct me if it's on our circulation plan. But if it's not, we can choose a place to have some crosswalk striping on the drive aisles so that there's sort of an additional call out to call attention to drivers that that may be where people cross.
Sure. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, so is looking at like the back of the property, how close is the highway there?
Let me switch to a plan that might show that. So, here you go, Carter. So there is a strip of land that is Mass state owned
Mhm.
that we do not own. And so what you see here is the off-ramp. The freeway alignment may be something like this,
Mhm.
farther away, Carter. So all of, this remains with the state. There are trees and woods in this strip that we can't touch and will continue to exist. Um, from a measurement standpoint, I mean, I don't know exactly. I could scale the drawing and look, but it's let's see, maybe like 120 feet to the off ramp and maybe 200 feet to the actual freeway.
Okay. And so basically you're clearing like up to the property line there.
Yes, because we'll go through in the landscaping plan. We're doing mitigation planting along the side here. For basically we're replicating and mitigating an isolated vegetated wetland, a small depression that's on the site. We went through a conservation commission process in December, and we've implemented a bunch of rain gardens and native planting along this buffer to replicate the ecological sort of species in that area that is being displaced. And I can talk more about that in the landscaping plan, which actually shows where that is, Carter, if that's all
Okay.
right.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Emergency services circulation. So this is a diagram representing that, in this case, a large fire apparatus can wrap around the building. There's really we've not represented it within the 10 barefoot lot really because there's no change to the access here. But since it was a comment, from the town planner and from the technical review, what I would propose is that we sit down with this plan with the fire department and make sure that they have no comment to this and they're sort of accepting of the emergency response condition at the two sites. All of the utilities are underground. They run from the right of way up under or beside Barefoot Road. We placed them all on the west side of the building. Even though they're underground, we all know that your gas service comes up out of the ground and goes into the building, and there's a little meter there. And your electric has a little green transformer that's painted a color to disappear, but sometimes they're bigger than we would like them to be. And we've tried to place them in areas that are not really going to affect the views from Barefoot Road or from Solomon Pond Road. So they're on that west side of the building, which effectively hides them. This is the transfer location buried back here, transformer, I'm sorry. And then this is where the gas meter would come into the building here. And it's not large, but it's on the side of the building. And so we tried to hide it from the public view. There's a water loop and private hydrants provided for Northborough Fire Department. I don't believe we received a comment letter from them yet, but we'll make sure we sit down with them with respect to that emergency services access and the hydrant locations to make sure that they're comfortable with those. My understanding is that the technical review of the drainage study has mainly been deferred to our land disturbance permit with the Conservation Commission. But this is important to talk about because it's part of our design and it's also relevant to the groundwater protection overlay. And so the site runoff on this site is actually materially reduced in the post-development condition. I'll show that in a moment. So we have less water leaving this overall site after development than exists today. Drainage is accomplished by two main means. The first is that is 4 primary rain gardens. So these are naturally planted drainage infrastructure where water flows and is naturally filtered and infiltrated back into the earth. And those are the areas that are represented in green. You'll see them on the landscaping plan in a moment as well. And then the second is that we have a supplemental subsurface infiltration. So this traps additional water, including the water from the roof drains, and puts it into the ground. And really just like there's plenty of DEP regulations concerning site runoff, but the overall goal here is to make sure it stays on site. And then, because I mentioned I talk about it, the 10 barefoot parking lot in the back here is served by this existing basin. There's no changes. We're not touching this basin. And we actually also reduce the drainage going into this basin in a post development scenario. So with the layout change to the parking lot in a 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm event, there's less water going into this basin. So no negative impact where we need to consider making that larger or anything. And I bring this up now because this relates to our groundwater protection overlay district compliance, which is, you all know it well. I view it in basically 2 categories. One is making sure that you're protecting the resources on site, meaning that you are not taking water from the site and not allowing it to recharge into the aquifer there. And so that's demonstrated by the table at left, which is basically showing in the green box that per our drainage study and drainage review, which will be reviewed by the land disturbance permit, we have less water flowing off the site in a storm event than we do today. So more water is being recharged into the site. And then the second category, as my simple mind views it of groundwater protection overlay, is concerning the quality of that water. And so one way the quality is addressed is questioning whether there's a septic system. In this scenario, there's no septic system. All, wastewater is going off-site into the municipal system. The other category is hazardous waste materials. And the groundwater protection overlay controls hazardous materials. It's a condition of the special permit. The challenge is I don't know who the occupant is today. I don't know what hazardous materials they have. Hazardous materials, even to me, sounds like a really bad word, but just to be mindful, our pharmacies and healthcare facilities, where we get our car service, where we get our clothes dry cleaned, all produce hazardous materials. It's the quantity and the way in which they are handled, which is presumably a concern. And so what we're trying to do here is we believe the groundwater protection overlay is legitimately written. It all makes sense to want to control these things. At the same time, we're trying to balance the line of knowing that we can have a user coming here so long as they are doing everything right and in the interests of the community. And so the drainage is known, it's quantifiable. The hazardous materials is unknown. And so what we have kind of preemptively proposed is a set of constraints such that we feel would protect the community interests. And if any one of those constraints is not fit by a potential occupant, they have to come back to the board and explain why for a modification. And so I just want to run through those. The board can ask questions, they can deliberate. I don't know if we'll have it resolved, but we thought really hard about these. And so the first thing is that this cannot be principal use hazardous materials. This is not a medical waste processing facility. That's not allowed here. We're agreeing that that's a condition. The second is that you can't store hazardous materials in any quantities that exceed maximum allowable quantities set forth in the fire code, which basically is the code that the fire departments go to that says this is how much solids, this is how much liquids you can store here. The third is that any tenant cannot exceed the definition of very small quantity generator. And I myself am very small quantity generator. It feels binary to me. If you're any quantity, that's bad. Just for a little perspective, in Northborough alone, there are 2 large quantity generators. There are 31 small quantity generators, and there are 59 very small quantity generators. So there's a lot of these. These are your pharmacies, your healthcare, your auto bodies, all the things I mentioned before. And so the idea is to limit it to the smallest definable generator of hazardous waste that exists in the state code. The third is to require that it's stored above ground and inside spill containment. This is also consistent with a recommendation that came from the Department of Public Works. And the final and fire is, in our minds, obvious, but just to state it, anything needs to be registered and passed by the Northborough Fire Department so that they keep a record of what's on site so that if they're ever responding to an emergency, they know exactly what they're encountering. So the goal is here that we've kind of quantified and addressed that we need to recharge the aquifer and make sure we're not sending water off site. We don't have a septic, so that's not really applicable. And I'm trying to find a way to self-govern the hazardous materials to sort of address the unknown of the future on this building ahead of time. And if that does not fit within this box that I feel like is fairly rigid and small, they've got to come back to you all and apply for a modification or amendment or whatever the appropriate term would be for that. All right, landscaping. So I'm starting at the high level. So there's 2 principles at the high level that we wanted to address. And Katerina Kat My landscape architect is on the call, so she can slap my wrist and speak up if I say anything wrong. But so the first is that we want a space to feel special. And so when we did 30 Barefoot, we did a small promenade of winter king hawthorn trees, so that when you're entering, you just know that you're entering a place that's landscaped and nice. It's not barren, it's not turf. The second is that we wanted to like soften and respect the privacy of all the adjoining uses. And so Amy already asked about the trees that had been added along the 10 Barefoot parking lot. You see those here. Those basically flank the right side of that entry drive. And then we have a row of elm trees along the left side that softens the left side. And that also provides that privacy sort of interruption and greenery between the two buildings, 20 and 30. And so the goal here is basically like, for wayfinding purposes, I can still make a visual connection with the building I'm going to, but it doesn't feel moonscaped and without natural vegetation and trees and foliage year round. And so that's the goal here. And then zooming in to the site is the kind of local landscaping plan. And so the first thing I want to call out is that we tried to be extremely restrained in our use of turf here. The goal is to not have a high water need, high maintenance requiring landscape. And so you effectively see some turf along the west side of the building in narrow strips, and then you see a narrow strip on the north. But otherwise, it's planting beds and it's mitigation planting that I'll talk about in a moment. So the parking lot is landscaped with trees. The islands are generally drought-resistant species, not turf, that will hold up to sort of the heat load of parking areas. Along the building facade are a mix of varying height shrubs and evergreens, and the goal here is to interrupt that building and make it feel soft, not just the facade of a building. When we look at buildings in plan view, sometimes they look naked and without, landscaping. We want to articulate the windows with that glazing with some natural landscaping. So for instance, when you look back at the rendering here, you see that we have the window cadence, and then in between, there's, in this case, the species is skyrocket juniper, which is, this is south facing, so a good, drought resistant plant that has some height, sort of anchoring those facade areas that are not windows to provide some visual interruption on the landscape. There's, going back to that, oh, getting ahead of myself. There's some cherry trees and some dogwoods here, pink dogwoods. The idea is like lots of evergreen, so year-round planting, but also flowering species that are going to provide interest throughout the seasons and a little bit of difference. The the darker, seeding here is basically a lot of mitigation planting. And so you're going to see a rain garden mix in the rain gardens, which are this area back here and here and here, as well as the front down near the entry to Barefoot Road. And then we have a native wildflower mix in the lighter green areas that are not turf in the back here. And those are planting areas and quantities that we have worked out with the Conservation Commission to basically replicate overall an area 1.5 times the depression that was here that we are filling in as a result of this. We're now planting between rain garden and wildflower native species here. Kind of along Carter's point, you can see the radius of the ramp here. So all of this is state land that remains wooded with a certain amount of trees. To make sure that that feels nice, we're adding some birches here as well. One of the comments from the design review committee was also to add a bit of evergreen in here, which we've done with some white spruces to make sure that if these birches are sort of naked in the winter, we still have some interesting trees here. And so the goal here is make a visual connection from Solomon Pond Road. It's okay for people to see this building. It's good for economic development purposes, but it shouldn't stand out and feel like a sore thumb. And we've tried to, soften that in earnest with the planting here. And then the smaller species you see here are shrubs. These are winterberry and hollies. They're generally kind of 3 to 5 foot in height. So we talked about the landscape buffer not being the full 20 feet there. When you get kind of 3 to 5 foot shrubs on top of a 10-foot retaining wall, you actually have a pretty effective landscape buffer between the two uses and the interruption of the plains there. And then hardscaping. So we use an Artline Unilock paver, which is sort of a natural textured grayish hue. We're using it in 2 places. One is at the entry to feel a nice wide grand entry where you step on something that feels different than asphalt or concrete. And then we replicate that use in the back patio, which is approximately 1,200 square feet for the employees to have outdoor seating. There's also some 8 additional bicycle parking spaces in the back. So if you're an employee and you want to keep your bike towards the back and use it during lunch, for instance, you can park it there. And we've already talked about the retaining walls. On the left side of the building, there's a much smaller wall. It's about 3 to 5 feet, between 30 and 20 there. Same split face, rock wall. So access and traffic. One great thing about this site is that it's right by the interchange. And so the primary inflow and outflow of traffic is likely to be via 290, just based on the population sprawl of the community and region. And what that means is that you can get into and out of this site without going by a bunch of residences and without going through a lot of Northborough. And so those are sort of represented. Obviously, this is a clover leaf, and so there's 2 other possibilities of going out and coming in on the westbound side of the highway. But this sort of just shows that. We did do a third-party assessment by Chapel Engineering Associates, and what it found was that at peak hours, the traffic increase is within the normal daily fluctuation, and specifically that this would add between basically 1 vehicle at peak hours between every 2 and 12 minutes. And then additionally, it found that regardless of the use, and it studied warehousing, research development, and light manufacturing, it didn't meet the standard established by the Mass DOT to determine a traffic study area for development projects. And so we have sort of a request to the board to consider waiving the technical review of our traffic assessment. And the reason I'm asking for that is honestly just based on our earnest approach to try to demonstrate that this is not a big traffic concern, and that a technical review, even if it resulted in some minor revision or data change, is unlikely, almost impossibly going to change the actual conclusion of the report, meaning that this is not beyond minimal traffic and there's not more here. And so, sorry, Amy, it looks like you want to say something.
Oh, I was just gonna ask the board if they had time to read it. I did read it. I did feel it was very thorough. And I liked how they used worst case scenario. I was just wondering if the board members had time to read the traffic study.
I did read it. My only question would be Barefoot Road going, I'm going to get this wrong, but on your map going east, um,
Yep.
here. I don't think there's a problem with truck traffic. However, going west, that empties out into potentially a residential area and an area where there is a heavy vehicle exclusion on Whitney Street. If you're not allowed, heavy commercial vehicles are not allowed to make a left-hand turn there. And I'm not exactly sure why one would go out and that way and make a right-hand turn. But I'm wondering if there's some way we can limit the truck traffic to making I guess it would be a left-hand turn out of that site.
Right hand, right, yeah, right, yeah.
I agree that would be my thoughts too. I was thinking that a condition that they would have to turn left, any large trucks or commercial vans.
I
could
mean, I'm
turn left.
happy, I'm happy to like put you know, cosmetically conforming and nice sign that on exit says truck traffic must turn left. Like
Yes.
turning with the plan to make sure.
Yep.
And so that we can help direct that. I mean, I'm with you, Bill. Practically speaking, it would be awfully silly to go that way unless you absolutely have to. And so there's a bit of a natural buffer to there. But I hear your concern. You don't want them going the wrong way by accident and still creating that traffic circulation where they realize it too late. And so I would be up for, you know, adding some signage on exit that directs people left instead of right.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
That'd be great. And we usually ask too if they can just, the property manager can just have a talk with, the truck drivers,
Yeah, 100%.
On top of the sign.
I don't want to complain.
And they will get stuck. I think they always turn around at Iron Mountain because now they have a
Oh,
no turning
no, they
sign.
turn on 30 barefoot. I'm actually
Right?
looking forward to like changing these driveways because it's
Right?
too convenient off the ramp right now. Northborough
Okay.
Fire Police has helped us more than one time, you know, move people along.
What does the board think about waiving the review of the traffic study? I myself did read it. I felt it was very, I thought it was really well done. So I'm okay with waiving the review.
Yeah, I would be okay with that as well. As long as we have that condition in there about the trucks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine waiving it. The one kind of question I had that some parts of it just like what is the speed limit actually on barefoot? I saw some places said 30, some 25, and I don't think anyone goes either of those. So
35.
35, okay.
Yeah, the traffic assessment actually tells you the answer to that. People go too fast is the answer. You know, like most roads, Carter.
Yeah.
Well, it's a nice straight road and you're coming off the highway. So, that's usually two things that don't combine well.
And
Yeah.
it's wider than most. It's a very wide road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So posted speed is 30 and average speeds was between 37 and 38 to answer your question specifically from the traffic study. In that immediate section there, Bill, you may be right, may increase to 35 further down the road. Oops. Oh, you're muted, Amy.
Sorry, I was just wondering if we lost Millie. I don't see her. She's in the audience. Patrick, can you let her in? She must have lost connection.
Sure.
Hi, Millie, welcome back. This never happens. I don't know why everybody's losing connection.
I take no responsibility.
Frustrating, but I'm back. Thank you.
Did you have any questions, Millie, about the traffic study?
I actually didn't hear a thing of it, so I'm going to pass on this.
Well, we were deciding whether we allow him to waive the third-party review. And the rest of the board was okay with that because it was
The
done.
traffic study, not the truck study?
Well, it's a traffic study. He had a professional traffic study done.
Okay,
And Tetra Tech could check it, or we could go with what he submitted. But we did agree to a condition that trucks have to turn left. There'll
okay.
be a sign, so then they have to head out to 290.
Yeah, and I did read that was a question of that, the traffic study, whether it was necessary or not. So, and I felt the same, that it really wasn't going to change that much. So I was okay with it.
Okay. So you're answer your question, Quentin. I guess we're all set with the
No,
traffic
I
study.
mean, thank you for, considering that. I mean, we wanted to do the traffic study to demonstrate what we thought was the answer already, and I think we did that. And so I appreciate that. Um, I'm getting there. Bear with me, everyone. This is a close-up view of the facade. So this is 30-foot tall building. What we've done is we've broken up the mass of the front facade so that it feels not like one long monotonous warehouse building, because that's not what it is. And so on the right side, we've actually got, it's 1 foot taller, so it feels like almost a different mass, and it's a different color. And this accentuates not only the entry and creates that kind of visual connection, but also sort of breaks up the length of that facade that wraps around the corner, as you can see in the rendering here, which is what might be visible through some of the trees on Solomon Pond Road. So it dresses up the quality of the building a little bit. Lots of natural light in this building. Natural light, as you can see, and I'll show this in plan, even in the back, in our business, all people are equal. So whether you work in the warehouse or the office, you get natural light, in our buildings. And so that's the intent there. You see some of the landscape that we've broken up the facade with here. We have provided with our application a photometric plan. These are all dark sky compliant fixtures. We've noted it on the plans, and we're also happy to agree to a condition that these are controlled lights. They already will have controls in photocells to make sure that they're not on unnecessarily, because we don't want to just, I don't like lights when they're not necessarily just for light pollution, but it's also not energy efficient. So we want those lights to turn off when they need to. And so this gives you a sense of, the quality of space we're trying to create here, where a company considering this building is really excited to put their logo on the facade here and call Northborough home. More specifically, we've provided you some architectural elevations. I should note out, I'm taking for granted that we cover this with the design review committee, but the material used in this building is the same as what is used on 30 Barefoot Road. And so it's a really nice insulated metal panel system. It's not reflective so that you get sort of this weird light play, but it has visual interest in that it has a little bit of a metallic feel. It's an energy efficient, assembly that meets the code or exceeds the code. And we just feel like it will hold up. It will stand the test of time. The colors we're choosing are not cold grays or whites. They're warm grays and whites. They don't feel like overly, institutional. They have some warmth that aligns with the landscaping. So we provided, sorry for the scrolling, elevations of every facade. This is south facing, so this is where we envision them welcoming customers or prospective employees. It's where we envision most of the office function of the user going, with the larger windows here. The windows are 12 foot high, which the goal here is to make sure that the building doesn't feel like that it is too top heavy. We're trying to ground the building to make it feel lower and consistent with the landscape. And we're doing that by raising the windows. We can't really go higher because it becomes too high to actually finish space inside of it at some point where you're conditioning, 14-foot office heights and you're having echoes and all those sort of things. But they do extend a little bit higher in the entry because we imagine a lobby, so that also provides some interest there. This is the west elevation, so we wrap the large windows along here. You'll see those, and then in the area that we're expecting to be more manufacturing or light industrial, we provided higher windows because you don't want to see the clutter below, and you also want to protect the privacy of whatever is going on there where people don't just look right inside of your windows. And the same is true of the back of the building and the east elevation windows there. So the special permit part of the special permit with site plan review is that we're applying without knowing a tenant for 2 uses that require a special permit. And it is one thing to build a building, but the economic development for the town here happens when there's actually a company here employing people, making something operating. And so the idea here is to balance the economic interest with the community protection, which is why these are special permits uses in the first place. And so what we've done here is, I'm displaying at the top your current bylaw definition of the uses, which we feel is actually pretty well written. Like, for instance, light manufacturing already doesn't allow anything that creates odor, smoke, noise, etc., and everything has to be done inside the building. But we're taking it one step further and proposing, our understanding is that this became a special permit use when there was a use that was really a risk potentially to the community around it. And that had to do with a certain amount of radioactive related manufacturing that went in, the details of which are not really relevant to our conversation, except that that was the community concern. And so we're trying to directly address the community concern by saying, hey, we don't know who the user is, but you've already said it has to be within the building. It can't generate noise, smoke, odor, etc. Let's also say that it doesn't, include anything radioactive beyond what is generally, allowed by the Department of Public Health, which is all the little radioactive things like in our microwave and that kind of thing. And then the second thing is warehousing. We know that there have been some large warehouses built in Northborough that have created truck traffic. Functionally, this is already not that. With the height and the limited loading docks, we will not and cannot accept a user that's going to generate a lot of truck traffic. But we're taking the step further of proposing a condition, which is to say that if there is warehousing in the building, it needs to be related to another use. For instance, maybe they're making something and they want to store a little bit of what they're making and ship it out. And then furthermore, it cannot exceed more than 60% of the building area. So effectively what we're saying, it needs to be sort of like an accessory use only. It can't be the primary use. And so the overall goal here is like, look, we appreciate that we don't know who the tenant is, and that's a little bit hard for the board to act within. But we also understand why the community protection exists, and we're trying to propose that we address those things through these 2 uses, restrictions and conditions.
I think another condition, like another concern of the community right now that we've been talking about for this year's town meeting are data centers. So if it was a data center, I would think it would have to get a special permit. I'm not sure if you're even planning on that.
Nope, that would be fine with me, so long as like they can have their little server room to
Right.
serve their building and that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah,
But-
definitely, but not as their principal use.
Yeah.
The
that's
data
okay.
center.
Yeah, that can remain a special permit. I know you're working on an amendment related to that, so. Yeah, Carter, looks like you got.
Yeah, I just wanted to check. So the special permit and the conditions, how is there a timeline of do they expire at some point? Is there a requirement to kind of start or finish in a certain amount of time?
My understanding is it's the same 2-year timeline
Okay.
as the site plan. But
Okay, yeah, I was just kind of,
I
wondering
agree with that.
if something, opened and then closed and another thing was moving in, how that would work, but that's fine.
I just wanted to respond to that, Carter. If they are able to get a special permit for light manufacturing use, and then they operate for, say, 20 years, and then they end up vacating the building, and another light industrial use is interested in occupying the building, then the special permit will go with them. So
Mhm.
they'll be able to do that. If they change the use, so say they go from light manufacturing to, say, data center, then they'll need another special permit for the data center because that's a different use than the light manufacturing use.
Mhm.
So because this is like a special permit for two different uses, would it be like if manufacturing for 20 years, then a warehouse comes in, or would it be kind of tied to the same use?
Um, so what my understanding is that the use that he is applying for is light manufacturing, and the warehouse component would just be accessory to the light manufacturing use. Is that your understanding, Quentin?
or an office or an R&D use. It wouldn't be connected to only light manufacturing, Lori. It would be accessory to another use in the building. So like to maybe to like demonstrate why I'm proposing this is like, so um we own another building where is regional to this that you may be familiar with, which is the former Sports Authority in Old Navy in Marlboro, right across the interchange. It was Spirit Halloween for a while. And today it's home to Aspen Aerogels, which is
Yep.
also a Northborough company in Forbes Road on the other side of the freeway. But
Yep.
Aspen Aerogels makes components for electric vehicles, Carter. They make, basically an aerogel insulation that goes around the batteries there. And their facility includes some office in the front where their engineers and salespeople and administrators sit. And then in the back, they've got light manufacturing where, no joke, you could probably eat off the floor and be fine. It's so clean and nice. And they're building these components and prototyping them and doing R&D. And then they've got, an accessory like warehouse where they might store some of this and, go out. And a company like them, not saying them, but any company choosing where to locate, um, they're trying to manage their risk because they have a certain need and timeline there. And what we're trying to do is make Northborough more attractive to them because without sort of some conditioned tight pre-approval of this, if you're a company that is doing light manufacturing, and let's say you are making parts for electric vehicles, not them, but someone else, you would choose the site that you're allowed to go to versus engaging in a special permit process that takes 60 days, say, or 30 days, simply because you cannot afford that unknown. And so what we're trying to do here is make the building attractive. It's nice to build the building, but to attractive to the occupant. I don't know what the ultimate use is going to be. I know it's going to be some mix of this. I don't know exactly how much office, light manufacturing, R&D, and warehouse, but I want it to be able to be a mix of that because that's what we're seeing the most interesting companies that would occupy this sort of space do. And so that's why we're before you with these special permits, is to say, hey, if we could get these uses conditionally approved, it would make this building much more viable to attract the kind of companies we're trying to attract.
And just to clarify, R&D is a by right use.
Mhm.
So you don't need a special permission to put R&D there.
Right. Yeah, that's why these two are the only two that we're asking for that special permit for.
Yeah, my question was kind of more just because we're like approving. I mean, I completely understand why
Yeah,
you're
okay.
asking us to do this. I'm more just kind of wondering, I know sometimes it'll get a little, if it was to have like a change of use, 20, 30 years from now, after it's like grandfathered in from the this approval from, decades before, that people aren't expecting because the use was different. I was just kind of asking about how that procedurally works.
Got it. Do you feel like that was answered? I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speak for like Lori or Bob, who are probably going to be better to answer that. But my understanding is, like, if it exists and it is not vacated for a certain amount of time, that use does continue to be allowed in that category. If it lapses, say it's vacant for a year or two, I think it would then have to come back, so long as it is then still a special permit use. And then just additionally, like, we did propose a groundwater protection, condition, but if they were increasing the hazardous materials quantities, that would also require them to come back under the bylaw to meet with, I believe, at least the town staff and maybe the board, for approval.
Yeah, so just to be clear, so if it's, I guess it's, so if is this two separate like uses, and like one of them would be what ends up happening, or is it like as the use that's being approved, just like the whole thing?
I think it's a combination of those uses. So I think it will probably be office, light manufacturing, and warehousing within one building.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
think what Carter's trying to say, though, or to answer
Okay.
it, if we do approve both of the special permits, then going forward, anybody new that comes along could do either or, because we approved the special permit.
Which is why I think you prove the conditions to make sure that those are still there, right? Of that special permit. So
Yeah,
for
whereas
instance, I was just going to say, you couldn't cherry pick that it was warehouse and then make the whole thing a warehouse, because it's a conditioned, use,
that's 60%.
and also accessory to some other use in the building, meaning
Mhm.
you're just not using it only for a warehouse.
Or maybe could add to the condition that it's not like a shipping and distribution, but it wouldn't be most likely because there's only 3 truck docks, truck bays, so. I think that was where the problem lied before. It was, you know, a lot of trucking bays. I do think the difference with this application, though, is the ease onto 290. It's not in a residential district, so that makes it more palatable. Both the radiation and the trucking abutted residential neighborhoods.
Yeah, I think I'm fine. I would just want to make sure we know kind of what we're doing.
Oh,
In
definitely.
case it comes up in the future. Yeah.
Definitely, I think they're great questions, and we don't want to set precedents going forward.
Mhm.
At least I don't for doing this, but I might feel more comfortable doing it because of where it's located. But if it was located next to a residential neighborhood, I might have more.
Yeah, and that's exactly true, Amy. When we went back and looked at when light manufacturing became a special permit, you might have been on the board, it was because the location matters. You liked the definition from what we could tell, but it was that, hey, we need to know where these things are. And this one is where it is. And so I would propose that by making the decision based on the location and also conditioning it, you're avoiding setting broad precedent that way.
So one question I have is that we have a couple of businesses that have been, I would say, abutting the 290 region. And it seems like they have certainly cut down a lot of the trees that might not actually be in their property line or jurisdiction. And so I see that your property is also on that. And you're aware that's not your property. But that hasn't stopped people from cutting trees down to increase visibility on that, those areas in 290 as well as on the Solomon Pond. If you look
Well,
to
it
the
won't
left
stop
of
me,
you,
Millie.
yeah. If you look to the left, all the trees have been cut down.
I know. Well, yes. So I'm not sure what condition we could use for that. I mean, I'm not exposing myself to that legal liability.
Okay.
So we have no interest in touching trees that are not within our legal right to do so. And I think that you've just put Bob on notice to watch us carefully. But it's important. I think the buffer is important to us.
Right.
I get that for some businesses, visibility is more important than buffer, but buffer has its benefits too. It reduces sound, it reduces odor, it provides just some natural screening. And so we're well aware that that buffer exists and, don't intend to touch it off of our property.
Okay. So hopefully when I look in like 5 or 10 years, those trees will still be at least mostly there.
Yeah. What else? Oh, so I want to address kind of a primary comment in the review letters now. So Barefoot Road is on the Complete Streets program. We talked about this, at length with Design Review Committee. The recommendation of the review committee was to sort of ask the applicant to cooperate with town staff to come up with a plan to sort of advance the goal of complete streets, I guess, as I'm saying it correctly, and accommodate some pedestrian infrastructure in that respect. So today, there's a sidewalk along Goddard Road and it crosses Solomon Pond Road. This image is street view facing west down Barefoot Road. And it just ends right here. So there's like a little, I don't know, 30-foot stub of asphalt that just ends right here. And I'm proposing that we do cooperate with the desire of the planning director and the design review committee to advance some pedestrian infrastructure along 30 Barefoot Road. So the proposal is to extend the sidewalk basically to the new curb driveway of 20 Barefoot Road. This would be a 5-foot asphalt sidewalk right along the road here. What we don't want to do, we want to terminate it at a driveway because if we just have an abrupt end, it's going to invite people to keep going. And without a proper termination, we view that as sort of a safety hazard. And so, the general proposal here is that the planning board continues to endorse the design review committee's recommendation, which is, hey, cooperate with town staff, with Lori and Josh and Department of Public Works and Scott, and come up with something. And so what I'm proposing is basically we do construct with the town's assistance, because this is town property that this would be done on, not private property. This is within the right of way, this asphalt extension in the green area here. So it would be basically starting to work down Barefoot Road. And then hopefully as other lots are developed or as the Complete Streets program gets funded, that will be extended, as necessary at that time.
But this is all one compound that you're calling 30, 20, and 10. So
This is 10, yeah, this is 20 here.
but 30 is part of the same compound?
Well, it's a different building. It's not in the scope of, our site plan application today. But it is there, yes.
And there's no sidewalk there, is that correct?
There's no sidewalk anywhere along Barefoot Road.
Okay.
So we're proposing that we cooperate and help make some of that happen. We can't bear infinite cost of doing that, but we can understand the importance of pedestrian infrastructure and do some of it. There was also a comment to extend a sidewalk up the driveway to 20 Barefoot Road from the planning director. This is something that we also discussed in design review. Unlike retail, for commercial and industrial uses, we are not trying to invite the public onto sites.
Understood.
It's not what we prefer, and it can go so far as to make tenants not want to be there because then they have to control that as well. And so we are opposed to doing a sidewalk all the way up the driveway onto the site. We just don't think it would get frequent use and it would have some negative associated with it. And the design review committee, I think it's fair to say, agreed with us on that point. Yeah, Lori, do you want to say something like that?
Well, this is coming because I made this comment or design review as well. So Barefoot Road is a popular walking destination for employees who work within the industrial properties on Barefoot Road.
Right.
So the aqueduct is within easy walking distance. It crosses Barefoot Road. It is located to the west of this property. So the reason why I made that recommendation is for the employees who desire to walk along Barefoot Road during their lunch breaks or whenever. They will be able to use a sidewalk instead of the roadway or the driveway where there are going to be trucks making deliveries and other people coming in and out. So that was my rationale for the sidewalk.
Carter?
Yeah, I also think that sidewalk would be justified. I think it's, yeah, people walk to Barefoot. You're extending the sidewalk. You might as well have employees be able to get to it. I also will note that Barefoot or parts of Barefoot Road are some of the portions of the town that do have some public transportation access. You can get the what's it called? The little car from the commuter rail to the senior center. And theoretically, people could use that to get to work or from work. So I'd prefer as much of the sidewalk as possible.
Are you talking up to their warehouse or just along Barefoot Road?
It's not a warehouse.
To the buildings. Yeah.
Just to speak to that for a moment, the trade-off, Carter, is that adds a lot of impervious surface, a lot of construction material for what in our business we perceive as a potential negative on the marketability and the economic development of the building. And I hear the concerns of the town planner and of you, Carter, that we want to encourage pedestrian transit. None of these driveways on Barefoot Road have sidewalks to them, to the buildings. There are 115 parking spaces here. So on an average, moment walking down it, there's almost zero probability of traffic. I mean, we just feel like it's a very sort of imbalanced ask to build that much construction material, impervious surface, disturbance really for a few people to walk down when the tenant also may not want that, because sidewalks do invite people up. And we're trying to kind of listen to, and there's not a requirement for us to build the sidewalk along Barefoot Road, but we want to help because we recognize the concern. And so we are proposing to add some here, on our dime, on town property.
I think that's where the design review felt that was, just to explain it, because we had design review and we discussed it in length, is if the applicant felt that the sidewalk to his building was a negative, then we weren't pushing for that, but he was agreeable to do it on Barefoot Road, so we took the trade-off. It's up to us as the planning board, so it's up to all of you.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I mean, if he wants to use kind of building the sidewalk along Barefoot Road as a trade-off, could he extend that sidewalk further to kind of the maximum he can on his property?
It's cost prohibitive, Carter. We're building, that's hundreds and hundreds of feet of sidewalk on Barefoot Road, on town property, when it doesn't exist beyond that. And so we're basically being asked to carry a load for the public infrastructure on the road where it terminates and doesn't provide any public safety benefit beyond that. And there's no, plan to fund the remainder of that, based on my understanding right now, on complete streets. And so we really don't want to have to bear all that cost and then have it terminate and bite people in, not an end condition, such as the senior center, which is a very good point that exists there. That's a perfect place for that to, end at some point or start.
The senior center might not even have a sidewalk from the building to the road. I can't remember, but I don't think they do.
I don't think they do either.
But since we are missing a member tonight and it's a contentious vote or discussion, I think we should wait for Anthony, so we have the full board. If we're gonna take a vote on this. Anthony, is gonna watch the video and then come back.
Yeah, and sorry, I just want to address, Carter, you said trade-off, and that was probably my word. That's not like how I meant to characterize it. To me, they're two different things.
Okay.
So I like complete streets. Like, our company builds in Texas, where, the other part of my colleagues are. We're city builders like you all, where we're responsible for planning and we're looking at bike lanes and all of these things. I'm in support of that, which is why I am agreeable to help create that vision to the extent practical along Barefoot Road. The sidewalk to the building, I view as a separate issue. So to me, that's about the marketability of the building, about inviting people that may not know or be confused walking along Barefoot Road up to the property. It's really about that. And so I just want to be clear, I'm not trying to trade one thing for another or characterize it that way. I'm saying I want to embrace the thing that makes sense to me, to the extent that we can help and make a contribution to the town that we feel is reasonable and practical and within our means. But that the other thing is really just not the right thing for this property. So just want to clarify that.
If I could just jump in for a second here, Quentin. I think there's a real concern here if we take this project all the way, and then we are at the point where Quentin's looking for a tenant here. We have a big, beautiful building built. We have folks interested in it. but at the same time, they see these pathways here where members of the public can go down, and it might turn them away at the last second. So I think what we've done here as a team is kind of really considered if that would be viable option for us. And I think what Quentin's trying to explain here is that it isn't. It just frankly isn't.
I mean, I guess because I'm aware in our like site plan criteria, it is that the plan cannot be reasonably altered to improve the safety of pedestrians on and egressing from the property. So personally, I would be very reluctant to not to say no, like I would be strongly supportive of the sidewalk to the building because that is how I interpret that requirement. I so I'm reluctant to say because you're saying a tenant might not want that. I'm personally a little bit reluctant. I don't know what the rest of the board feels about that. And yeah, I was your comments, the way you were saying it, it did sound like you were like, okay, well, we are doing it on barefoot, and I appreciate that part of it. But yeah, looking at just considering that criteria there, I'm a little bit reluctant to okay it without. But
I think the case I'm making is that that is the reasonableness, which is that like it's not reasonable to add that because it's not consistent with the industrial zone and the intent of the building. And so, I'm not trying to make a nuanced take on words, but that's sort of our argument, is that that is the reasonable alternate, is that we're not just going to push things because it says it on the context of every site plan. This one, the reasonableness standard is that it's just not reasonable on this type lot because it's not, the right, for the use. But also, Carter, I just want to state, it also just adds a lot of impervious surface for something that we also don't think is a good thing. So it's there, a sidewalk is not always only just positive infrastructure. There's trade-offs to it too that, I would consider. And so, that's just my thoughts on the reasonableness there. So, but your comments are fair, and I'm listening.
I think that it's great that you're looking to add this. To your point, Mr. Hart, that a sidewalk also needs to be maintained, so that adds to the element of the cost of it. It's not a huge sticking point for me. I was only asking about the next property because it seems to be part of the same compound, and you used the word, I think, compound or development. Yeah.
Yeah, we present it as like a campus-like setting because
Campus.
we're basically filling in
Yeah.
vacant land here and trying to make 3 uses that look the same. I mean, the challenge is, Millie, just frankly, is that that's, I'm not sitting here measuring it, knowing, but I think it's like another 500 feet of frontage to construct sidewalk, on for us. And so I'm trying to balance here, help realize the goal, help move it along, but also like, agree to something that we can deliver on and we feel that we can do.
And I would myself would be satisfied with what you've proposed here. Again, I was asking merely because elements of the campus seem to be somewhat, integrated. It's not just the cost, as you say, of the installation, addition of impervious surface, but it's also the cost of the maintenance of it. And it's not a big sticking point for me. It would have just been nice to have that element considered, but it's not part of this project. And I appreciate that.
I think that Oh, all right. So just in summary of my presentation, I really appreciate all the dialogue. It was super helpful. We do believe that the project here satisfies all criteria for special permits and site plan approvals. We also believe that this is a great opportunity for Northborough to convert vacant infill land into a productive asset. Maybe asset is not the right word, but part of the community. You know, it's consistent with the master plan. It's an appropriate site for this type of use. We've got good design in our architecture. We've got environmental compliance. This is a good functional building that I believe will attract a very high quality company to Northborough. It has substantial fiscal benefits. You know, this is property tax without a very heavy budget obligation on the other side. And then this is just, you know, we feel that it adds to the community, that it will help elevate the development within the town. And so I'm happy to, I don't know, Amy, whether you open it for public comment or if you want to go through some of the comment letters or if there are additional topics the board wants to go in, but just want to thank you for letting me run on time for a while here. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being so detailed. And
Yeah.
that was one thing the design review said too, like he came to the first meeting with so much information and all the designs and like anything we could ask for. So we thanked him and I still thank him again for being so thorough.
Yeah, it's incredibly helpful. Thank you.
I'm looking at the A&R quickly. Well, first I'll take board comments, but I'm looking at the A&R and it doesn't even look like there would be much room for a sidewalk going up the driveway
Hmm.
with the layout. It's 40 feet wide, it looks like.
It would be super tight, Amy. Like I had, you know, we're so opposed to it, we haven't even studied it, you know, frankly, but you know, it would be really squeezed onto that driveway there. It may even need to be kind of part of the curb of the driveway if we absolutely had to do it. Um, my engineers could comment, but I'm not sure I want them to because we just don't think it's the right trade-off on this building, but.
Okay.
The most this is Jesse Aguilar with High Point. The most viable location along the approach driveway up to 20 Barefoot would be along the east side of the driveway, where we have exactly a 5-foot shoulder, which you know is needed for safety purposes anyway for vehicle circulation, and then it drops off at a 3-to-1 slope down toward the 10 to the 10 Barefoot site. So you would need some means of fall protection for pedestrians along that walk. If you wanted to make it, you know, two-way viable, you would have to make it even wider. And we very quickly run out of real estate along the width of that portion of the lot. I'd also like to note that no other site along Barefoot or along Goddard provides a pedestrian access to the street, whether there is a sidewalk on the street or not. I'm speaking about Goddard. St. Gobain doesn't have one. That site is gigantic, has a ton of parking, no sidewalk connection to Goddard to speak of, and no other site along Barefoot, including the senior center, has a pedestrian connection to Barefoot. So this would be the only site along Barefoot and Goddard that has such a connection, which seems really incongruous to me in terms of what we're being asked to provide here, in my opinion.
Lori,
Yeah.
quick question. Does not Goddard have something in the design plans now for that access, or am I mistaken?
So that was discussed, 9 Goddard, St. Gobain, that was discussed during their addition that you folks permitted in the fall, I believe.
Yep.
And they are coming forward with a parking lot project,
Right.
probably within the next 6 months. And they are proposing to add a sidewalk into their campus as part of that project.
And I thought so. So you're correct in saying that it doesn't currently exist, but that's part of a project in place.
Yeah, the difference I think, Millie, is that that's a user opting into that and
Sure.
wanting that and being comfortable with that. And that's not the scenario that we're faced here with, like, as the project proponent. It's
Sure.
that sort of unknown future use, but fair.
I understand where you're coming
Yeah.
from on that. An unknown use, an unknown user. Sure.
Yeah. Bill? Or I shouldn't be calling on people. That's not my job. I just see hands.
I
I'm gonna shut up.
I
You know
appreciate
what's
that.
funny is I actually really liked it. It made it easier than me interrupting all the time. Since you were doing the presentation, I was enjoying it actually. So thank you.
All right.
I can appreciate what Carter's saying. And as somebody who is on the traffic safety committee, I completely get it. I'm wondering if we can do a compromise. I understand your part as well, Mr. Hart, about just the cost of that alone, right? Would be astronomical. What about compromising to like a painted white line? Because we are putting in like bike racks. So the assumption is if you're putting in bike racks, you're expecting bikes to at least go up that driveway, right? So giving them like a dedicated lane, doesn't have to be a sidewalk, but a dedicated white painted lane going all the way up, just, so traffic sort of stays away.
Mm,
I don't think we have the width, Jesse. I don't.
We do not have the width. We could do, I mean, it would have to be something in the form of bike sharrow markings to notify motorists that, bikes may be along the traveled path. But we lack the real estate to widen that.
hmm And I'm not sure if the putting in the bike racks actually says we expect it. It might be something that is that criteria driven? Lori?
That's in our regulations,
Right.
that all sites have to provide for bike racks.
And that's what I thought. It doesn't mean they expect it as a user.
No, I get that, but you still, if you're gonna, if we are going to expect that as a planning board, right, that's in our regs, then, we really should somehow protect those bike riders, right?
Um,
Especially if you've got a semi coming up that driveway, if it's already narrow.
yeah, I would say on that element, it's a different element for cyclists have the right of way. Most at times motorists may or may not know that or respect that, but a cyclist surely knows that they're at risk. I'm not saying we should put them at risk, but having a bike rack doesn't necessarily mean that the end user is responsible for the risk that a person might take.
I
I
think
hear where you're coming from, Bill. I can't say I disagree with it, but at the same time, I don't know that the property owner is responsible for that.
I think, like, our limitation on width is real, and we get into striping, even if it's shared striping, it creates more confusion than is necessary on the drive where you got cars moving around. And like, um, I ride my bike.
Yep.
I'm on team pedestrian and bike. I walk to work when I can. This is not a frequent traveled high volume thing that justifies too much infrastructure related to it. I mean, I'm open to, for instance, at the entrance, Bill, having a small sign that says watch for cyclists and pedestrians, for example, similar to how on the other side we have trucks turn left,
Sure.
make people aware and maybe signal to them. But I have to balance that with the primary use of the building, which is really kind of the functional like access that is, in reality, mostly going to be cars and trucks. And we do want to accommodate those things. We just want to balance them.
Mm-hmm.
Understood.
Would you be open to, on that point, would you be open to some signage versus like asphalt marking? I'm just a little worried that markings, given our kind of constraint there, would add to maybe too much confusion as it does help.
Um, I was just trying to come up with a compromise, that's all.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Okay.
Carter?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think if if you can't do the sidewalk, you can't do any striping or anything, the signage would be better than not. Um, I guess the only other question of what if you'd be willing to when you have the sidewalk along Barefoot ending at the driveway, I don't know if there's a possibility of maybe adding a crosswalk to the driveway and ending it on the other side of the driveway. Mostly just anticipating, hopefully, eventually, the town would be extending the sidewalk.
Yeah, I mean, so long as that's striping, Carter, I'm fine with that. If it means, inset pavers or something that are going to then be a maintenance obligation and get disturbed on plowing, that's another thing. Those make sense in town centers and whatnot, but here they would be
Yeah,
too much of a maintenance obligation.
yeah, it'd
Yeah,
be
I
a
think
painted
Carter,
sidewalk. Yeah.
Carter, you got to be careful with the crosswalk
Mm-hmm.
because now you've got to do the ADA compliance on both sides,
Yeah.
right? And there's no sidewalk on the other side. So I think if we can come to an agreement saying when and if the town is able to continue that sidewalk, we get the sidewalk striped. Um, that's one thing, but with ADA and everything, as soon as you put a crosswalk in there, you've got to put something on the other side.
I think that's why there's like that little stub of refuge that exists today. I'm just looking for that slide. But you've got that crosswalk here across Salmon Pond, and you can see just a small little strip here, but then it
Right.
just abruptly ends and
Right.
turns into grass.
Yep.
That makes sense. Yeah. Good point, Bill.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? Lori, did you want to go through some of your memo?
Quentin, if you can unchair,
Yep.
do you want me to go through 10 or 20?
I was thinking 10, but we are going to meet again and continue. Would it be more time appropriate? Like, is Quentin going to work on your comments in between meetings, or do you want to go through them all tonight?
Well, if I might suggest, Amy, like some of these comments are not really big issues. We'll either make a revision or we'll, state a request for a waiver or clarify something. And so if we're going to be continued, I mean, we will respond to these between meetings and have something to discuss at the next meeting. If you feel it would be beneficial for Lori or for I to raise some of the big ones and talk a little bit about them now, we can certainly do that, the things that the board might want to hear and talk about. But I don't want to, that's an idea. We will respond to them, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right. Well, that's what I was thinking, to save time, if you were going to go back and respond to them, we could talk about them at the next meeting. But if you do feel there are one or two big ones you'd like to talk with us tonight, then that's fine too.
On 10 Barefoot, the only thing that I really want to call attention to is well, we talked about the sidewalks just now, so that was one. We talked about the landscape buffer, which I think that Oops, I realized I'm not sharing anymore, so I need to reshare if that's okay with everyone, so I can,
Sure.
okay, thanks. So I mentioned this, but I just want to call attention to it. There was a comment from the planning director as well as the technical review, Tetra Tech, that we had shown demolition of lighting and no replacement. And that comment was fair because it was, oops, I'm not sharing, am I? Hang on. Gosh.
There we go.
Oh, I am. All right. It was correct that we were not showing the lighting, but that was not the intent. So the intent was that, so I appreciate that it's hard to see. I'm going to go back to my little spotlight thing here. Okay, so there are 2 light poles in this back lot today in the little yellow spots right here. We are not going to remove and dispose of those with no new lighting. They are simply going to be moved approximately 12 to 15 feet into the new island. So this one, you can kind of see it if I zoom in here, is right here. And we're going to just simply, because now this is becoming a circulating aisle, we obviously can't have a light there. And so we're going to pull it back to the island here. And then this one is sitting in right over here, which will now be a parking space. And so it needs to be moved slightly this way. And so we will address that in a revision showing that lighting. What we will ask for a waiver from is providing a photometric plan, because the intent here is not to completely redesign the 10 bare foot site. I don't know what light fixtures those are. I might have to get a lift and actually see what they are in order to create a photometric plan. And what we're trying to balance here with the board, as I mentioned before, is leave this much better than before and try to do no harm, but try to balance the extensiveness of our submittal on the plan there.
It was light spillover. It's probably going to be on your property.
Correct. As it is now, you know.
Yeah.
The only other comment that I just was curious about is the berm. So is your intention to have berm abutting
Yeah,
the
we're going to
parking lot?
revise that, Lori. So we'll add
Okay.
back the Cape Cod berms.
All right.
So they're not going to replace those lights. They're just going to move them.
Correct. I mean, unless I damage them and then I have to replace them. But, you know, we have to do a little bit of grading and pavement work anyway, Amy. So we'll lift them up and have an electrician relocate the conduit, you know, per code and relocate them.
Lori, just on, I think on some of your comments, and I might be confusing 10 with 20. You had
Sure.
some concerns about the building being within the 11 feet or the 20 feet of the boundary.
That's yeah, that's up here,
Yeah,
Millie, that we have. So there's basically 2 site design criteria that this does not meet explicitly per the bylaw.
right.
So the first is that we don't have 20 feet of landscaping between the property boundary and the parking area. We don't have it on either side of the property line, to be honest. And that was when I was talking about that grade difference that we talked
The
about with the
retaining
design
wall.
review committee.
Okay.
Is that, you know, I think what we need to do in our response is formally ask for the waiver from that and let the board deliberate is if our design, taking into consideration the, you know, grade difference is adequate to provide that waiver.
Okay. Okay, that's fine.
And then the other, just to get in front of it, was adding all of these trees around it. We can't really add a whole bunch of new landscaping inside because we're constrained by making sure that this still works for the USGS. And so I can't wholly redesign this parking lot, but I personally and also understand the board and design review committee's feedback that if this is going to be a fenced lot, let's make it look nicer. And that's why we proposed, that landscaping outside of it. And so that will come into the interior landscaping calculation per the bylaw, which is a calculation in which you take the extensive pavement and calculate how much landscaping is within the edges of pavement there. And I believe the bylaw says it needs to be 10%. In the case of 20 Barefoot, it's like 6.3%, and the design review committee recommended to sort of accept that waiver. Again, planning board's decision, but that's what the design review committee found. And we need to sort of formalize the waiver request similarly for this site as well.
Okay.
I didn't have any other significant comments on 20 Barefoot that haven't already been discussed.
So one question real quick. I noticed when I was going through the design review comments, one of the recommendations they made was to waive the dumpster shielding. I didn't see the dumpster on the drawing. Can you just point that out real quick?
Yeah, of course. So it's right up here, Bill.
Okay.
And so it's behind the building, so you can't see it from Solomon Pond or from Barefoot Road. It's accessible via a striped area here. And then, there's natural vegetation in the state-owned land along the freeway and off-ramp there that
Okay.
for some screening.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't see it on the original drawings. That's why I wanted to just see where it was. Thanks.
Yep.
And is that a typical, what size dumpster do you have there for that size building?
So that's a typical like 10 yard. It would vary, Millie. Like obviously it could be larger. Sometimes tenants decide to dedicate one of their loading docks to one. Basically, we're planning for what we think is reasonable. If they need to do something that's going to require site plan review, they're going to have to come back to you all for an alternate location, if it doesn't comply. And so that's pretty, it's not tiny, a 10 yard, it's one of those front load, dump ones, and they could conceivably probably fit two in that striped area, but we don't want to be overly conservative and show a bunch of dumpsters when we don't have to,
Right.
on the site if it's not going to be used.
And I apologize if I was disconnected while you talked about this. Is there a snow removal or snow
Oh,
storage?
yes, that's a good one to talk about. So that was a comment from the planning director. So the primary snow storage is this outline over here, behind the building and the loading dock. And so this is the type of building that, similar to how we handle 30 Barefoot, they keep equipment on site because the operations are very important. Like, and everyone learned this lesson this past year is like, you need to be able to move a lot of snow, quickly.
Yeah.
So we don't really have an operational problem with storing snow here. I'm fine with, agreeing to a soft condition that if snow accumulation creates a functional or safety hazard, that we will haul it off site. Lori recommended an 8-foot height. I'd really like to avoid, for everyone's sake, the town and mine, having another specific enforcement measure. I think it's really up to like the snow removal contractor to like figure out the exact best way to stack that. But I do agree that snow shouldn't be a hazard, and we're aligned here. Like I can't have too much snow on site impacting the operations of the business there because they're not going to be happy. They need to get their circulation, they need their parking spaces. And so I need to haul it off site, if necessary.
Did Concom have a requirement that you can't push it into the water retention areas?
I don't know if that's written, I'll have to check, but it's certainly something that we wouldn't do. And I know that it's
Right.
in our O&M plan, in our stormwater report.
That's right.
Some of-
We expressly prohibit storing snow in the water quality swale in any of the rain gardens, on
Yeah, we
top
can't put any
of
snow there.
drop
I
in.
noticed that some of the like warehouses in town do have a sign, so the snow plow remover person knows, do not push it into
Mhm.
this area.
Right.
I'm okay with putting it primarily on this one where it's near that large apron, not to store it there.
Okay.
We talked
Okay.
about the guardrail. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say there are some waivers, but I think those should be voted on next meeting since we don't have a full board tonight.
Yeah, and Amy, like we have a few waivers that it appears from the comments that we need to rewrite and include. And so I don't think that we have for you the comprehensive waiver list yet. I think it would be helpful for us to respond to the letter with the final kind of proposed waiver list and for you to kind of deliberate those then, if that's okay with you.
Sounds good to me. Yep.
And is it designated on your plan where snow storage and removal would be, or is that not designated?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just not looking at the actual one. I was using a proxy. We do have
Okay.
snow storage labeled.
Okay.
Jesse, do you know what sheet that's on? Is that layout plan or?
Wait, I saw something that said doghouse. What is that?
Where's doghouse?
Doghouse manhole. That was a drop over manhole to connect for the sewer connection to the main in Barefoot Road. But based on DPW's comments, that's going to be a conventional manhole connection, not a doghouse. Like
There's
Okay.
no doghouses allowed.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah,
wait a
that'll be
minute.
removed.
The things you actually see when it's blown up. What?
Yeah, you're like, wait a second, didn't you? Not trying to sneak anything by you.
Yeah, there it is.
This is that snow storage area, which obviously is, it's pretty large, but it's finite. And we understand that. And it depends on what the snow event, is. And if it's like this year, we might be faced with some haul off. We had a very big snow event and we were
Yeah.
managing it out there with 30 Barefoot Road. And, we'll have to do the same here.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because that looks like it would just handle the back area, like the front parking lot.
There
There's
should
no
be another one.
No
Well, we
snow
have-
storage area there.
Yeah, we have constraints, and so we're gonna have to keep equipment on here, Amy, and like move it, to the appropriate location or haul it off. That's the bottom line. Like we have site constraints and we're gonna it's we have to try to think of everything, but we can't just put it everywhere for the sake of it. And this site was constrained, and so we put it where we have the largest area. And it's going to create a little bit of an operational cost for me, to deal with that. And that's just going to be part of this building.
I have a question, and this might be for Lori, is that you have an outdoor patio. Is that an option for excess snow storage? Since generally not going to be used at the same time.
The tricky thing for us is that that's like pretty nicely landscaped. If you saw the landscape plan, is that, we're trying to create some privacy on
Oh,
the
yeah, I
patio,
see.
Millie. So, you've got the circulation drive and then the ramp here. We're almost intentionally sheltering that patio. So it's a good idea, but it would be pretty hard to like, put it there. And
Okay,
then obviously you could think of the dumpster location, but we need a dumpster year round, so we got to
for
keep
sure.
that clear. I personally am comfortable living with the, as the building operator, living with what we've proposed and agreeing to a condition that if it's a safety hazard or a functional hazard, it needs to be hauled off,
Okay.
And I'm also comfortable with a sign at the large rain garden saying, snow storage prohibited or whatever the appropriate language would be.
And that snow storage area wouldn't interfere with the 53-foot 18-wheeler trying to round
No.
itself back in?
No, because it's all behind the curb. It's off of the apron.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you for the detail. Lori, is there anything else that you'd want to call out? Nope.
No.
No, I think that we talked all about them. We talked about the guardrail. We're going to come back and propose something wood there. We talked about the traffic and the review there. And so I generally feel like the most beneficial way forward is for us to respond like in writing to these things. And, we may have some waiver requests and we'll have some plan revisions.
Sounds good. So will you be able to come, or would you want to come to our next meeting, which is April 7th? Or do you need more time?
I'm good with that. Jesse, you feel like based on what you know about revisions, you're good with April 7th?
I think that's fine. So we would need to get everything in the Wednesday before. Is that correct?
I would need everything at least 1 week prior.
Okay, so by the 31st.
We do have a cell tower public hearing starting on the 7th. That will be a lot for me to do 2 decisions and a review for the cell tower. So,
What would be the next available meeting?
the one after that is April 21st.
Just as a matter of like how these things work, like asking you, Lori and Amy or the board, like if we're able to respond to the comments with ample time and give review, is it possible that, and I'm not inferring how the board would vote, but like, is it possible to work on a draft decision so that if we did wait till that later meeting, that we could potentially make some of that progress then if the board were willing?
I would come prepared with the draft decision. So whenever you are, the public hearing is continued to, whether it's the next meeting on the 7th or the meeting on the 21st, I would come prepared with 2 draft decisions. The 7th is going to be hard for me, like I said, because I have to do a review of the cell tower and then prepare 2 decisions. So that's a lot for me to do in a week. And then, of course, we have to finalize the last opportunity to make any revisions to the zoning package is on April 7th. So the warrant goes to the printer on Friday, so I promised that I would have any changes to them on Wednesday, so the following day of the planning board meeting, the 8th.
Okay.
Actually, on that note, Lori, I have a quick question. That does the formation of any of these lots, and I'm sure you've looked at this, make it any less conforming to the irregular lot? Because I was a little confused on
I
that.
did already check that, and there were some issues with the calculations for 2 of the lots.
Yeah.
But by my calculation, they were all conforming.
But none of them made them anyone less conforming.
Well, they probably made them less conforming, but they still conform.
Okay. Okay.
So the one 20
Yes.
barely makes it,
Right.
but it does make it.
Okay. I was a little confused on that. So if you're good with that, then I'll go with that.
Yeah, we have a revision to make to the irregularity calculation, but it still exceeds the 0.4. And then we have that will be updated with the dimensional use tables on that sheet, which show that it's conforming, Millie. And so they
Okay.
will all be conforming lots in a post-development scenario.
Okay,
And they'll
thank
all
you.
show that they're conforming with also the groundwater two regulations. All three of them, because you're changing, you're taking away from one of the lots, and
Right.
I just want to make sure they're all conforming with all of the bylaws.
Yeah, well, so yes, so I mean, I guess the groundwater is a multifaceted overlay. So I guess when you say conforming, it kind of depends on in which way. I mean, 10 barefoot is demonstrated in the drainage calcs, that that's decreasing flow. And otherwise, there's no change relative to that. There's no hazardous materials or increase in building area.
Mm-hmm.
30 barefoot is the same, no change to drainage there. And then 20 barefoot is the one where we're really demonstrating it does comply and that the post development is less. And that's all in our stormwater report that I guess is going to end up as a condition of this whole thing anyway, which is going to be reviewed with the land disturbance permit.
Okay.
I was confused if some of the numbers changed with 30 barefoot because they're losing 2 acres. Do they
Right.
still conform to the numbers needed for groundwater too? I think they do impervious calculations and
Based
I
on
don't,
smaller. Yeah.
based on size.
I mean, we'll check that, but yes, I think that that really comes into when you're increasing and adding that you can't exceed a certain impervious, which is not what we're doing. But like the stormwater, the infiltration and the runoff calculation was pre and post development or of the area being touched. And so it is conforming. And so, but I hear what you're saying. We'll make sure that it is.
Right. I just didn't know if it went on a percentage of the lot size. And since that 30 barefoot is getting smaller,
Right.
It
does the
would still be
percentage?
yeah, it would still be conforming because it refers to the underlying impervious cover, which is conforming. And it's only when it's lesser, the 40%, when you're doing a new development. But we don't, I mean, we'll read it and make sure, Amy.
Okay, all right, that would be good. And I think we are waiting for a review from Tetra Tech too for 20 barefoot. And then Lori will send that out to us and she'll send it out to you. So if you have any comments on that, you could also respond to that before the next meeting.
Yeah, I think we're hoping maybe that we'll get that this week and then we'll do kind of two comprehensive response letters, one for 10 and one for 20. And they will refer to both the planning director's comment letters and also the Tetra Tech planning letters. This is something I talked about with Lori, just so we have one place to finally start to merge that list of comments.
That'd be perfect, because I have so many different letters. I'm trying to merge them together so
Right.
they're all in one space.
And just to be like preview it, there's a few little things that we might ask for waivers, like changing the scale reference of all of our drawings.
Yeah.
It would be great if the board would consider allowing us to keep the scale reference,
I saw
on
that.
the drawings. But
Yeah.
we'll respond to those in writing and talk about them.
Okay, and that would be more of at least for me, from Lori, is there a reason why the scale reference needs to be one over the other?
So generally, any areas of nonconformity are called out. The regulations are kind of like a one size fits all, which doesn't make sense for parcels of a larger size. So it's not unusual for the scale to be different. If we're talking about a larger site versus a smaller site.
Right.
So it's just a matter of them asking for a waiver and then you folks voting on it. I would absolutely recommend that you approve the waiver because certainly the plans are legible at the scale that they submitted.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Not
All
to
right.
pick on that one, but it's just an example. I think it's better we respond to all those things and then you can deliberate them.
Sounds good. So
So
you're,
I think to answer the question, I mean, being that like I would love to make earnest progress on this, but it sounds like the 21st is not is more beneficial for the sake of earnest progress. And so I guess I just hope that the things that are out of my control, like Tetra Tech, come in soon, and that if we're able to turn revisions and comment letter responses in a timely manner, that you all would also have the opportunity to review those, and Lori potentially to draft that decision, so that if we're skipping a meeting and going to the 21st, hopefully if it is within the board's will, we can make some real progress towards, a decision and those conditions or waivers. So I think that that's okay with us.
okay, thank you. All right. So hearing that, do I have a motion to continue the public hearing for 20 Barefoot Road, 10, 20, and 30 Barefoot Road for April 21st at 6 o'clock?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Millie Milton,
Aye.
Bill Pierce,
Aye.
Carter Brannon,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. So we'll see you at 6 o'clock on the 21st.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. So let me just grab my other papers. Next on the agenda is the public hearing for, let me say, public hearing for the proposed amendment to zoning bylaw section 709-020 site design standards. And that was the one that had to do with open space. Lori, do you mind pulling it up? Do you have it? We had talked about it at previous meetings, but we had to hold a public hearing on it, so that was advertised for today.
Do you want me to pull up the PowerPoint or the actual bylaw amendment?
Either, whichever is easier for you to, if you don't mind explaining it. And we can wait a
Okay.
minute or two. You might have I know it's hard for me to switch right away from one for the next.
All right, I'm gonna pull up this one first. So I can get to the slide. I have a nice little picture, which I thought would explain it. So essentially, this modification is to the open space section. It's in our site development standards. And what it would do is it would exclude driveways from the minimum required open space set aside in business and industrial districts. So that open space set aside is specified in the dimensional table. So this will help ensure that developed parcels have at least some open space for landscaping, stormwater mitigation, and buffering purposes. So if you look at this picture, the way the bylaw works currently is that this driveway would be included within the open space, when obviously it is not open space. So this is in order to provide more area for these purposes of landscaping, stormwater mitigation, and buffering.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? And does anyone in the audience, I know I was just thinking, I didn't ask for public comments on the last application, but I do see there's only one person in the audience and he didn't have his hand up. So hopefully if he had a question about the last application, he would have raised his hand. But for this zoning bylaw, does anyone have a question?
I just want a clarification that driveways are at this time currently included as impervious, possibly, and open space. And we're just trying to distinguish that they're really not open space.
That's
Mhm.
correct. So
Got it. Okay.
they are considered impervious, but they are also considered open space, which is
Right.
confusing.
Seems counterproductive.
Right.
Correct.
And it came up because I was thinking about it. We had some applications in industrial areas and the whole lot was covered, yet we called
Right.
for 40% open space. I'm like, where do they get in the open space? But then
Right.
it would be the driveway.
Right.
But it really isn't leaving any green space, which is
Right.
what the purpose of open space is.
Okay.
And I looked at other towns and they did not include driveways as open space. So, seeing no questions and no one in the audience has their hand raised, I guess we're all set with that, but we should leave it open until our next meeting, because as Lori mentioned, February 7th is the last meeting for us to discuss zoning bylaws.
You mean April?
April, sorry, April 7th. And, we did send out a new notice to open up all the bylaws because after the community advocate article came out on Friday, we started getting emails from
Right.
residents. And there were two residents in particular, and they're gonna come to the April 7th meeting when the public hearing is reopened.
Right.
Um, I could share my screen. In between the last meeting and this meeting, I did look at Marshfield's bylaw because I noticed, I'm on this email for mass planners and they are all talking about data centers. And there were a couple towns who said they were going to have a bylaw on data center. So I, reviewed theirs
Mm-hmm.
and I can pull it up. But we did lose Carter, so I don't know.
So strange.
Right. There's still three of us, but we should keep an eye out to see if he ends up popping back up in the attendees. It is weird. It's never happened before that we're dropping people.
Right.
But while we're waiting, I'll pull up the changes that I had thought of. Let's see. Sorry. Share. I'm not sure if Carter purposely left or if he's gonna come back.
Oh, I see attendees too. There used to be only one. There's Carter. He's in attendees right now.
Okay. Let's see. I'll see if I can add him or if Patrick, if you can bring him back over.
Yeah,
I don't see him in the attendees.
I do. Hmm.
I just promoted him and then he disappeared, so I don't
He
know.
disappeared.
It's very strange. This link is really funky.
Right. Is there anything that would cause that to happen? People to drop?
I don't know what caused me to be disconnected. And then trying to get back in seemed like it was asking a lot of questions and I needed to, somehow jump through the right hoops, which I didn't have to before.
You guys don't mind keeping an eye out. Maybe Patrick, can you keep an eye out for Carter?
Yeah, I'll keep an eye out.
I still see him myself on the attendees list, but and maybe while have a little bit of a pause, to that point, Amy, about people suddenly being aware of what some of the proposed articles were to be discussed, is there a way that maybe in January, February, we can somehow let the community advocate know that this is something we're putting forth so that if they want to attend a public meeting, that they would have an idea rather than find out later?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I was thinking of the same thing. And hopefully we'll remember it next year. But it would be great before we close the public hearing to actually Maybe
Put it out
invite
to the, yeah,
yeah,
put something
ask
out to
them.
the public. Yeah.
Or Lori, I think we can put out like what a public, you can do a public notice to the community advocate. What's it called? I forgot what it's called.
Well, we do publish, actually.
press
I can't
release.
remember if it was in the Advocate or the Telegram and Gazette, because we kind of use them interchangeably. Um, so we do advertise in the newspaper. And of course we post on the website. It is a challenge to get people to attend.
Right.
Of course, Stephanie has been publicizing White Cliffs. So I can ask her. I know they did an article in the newspaper for the fall town meeting. So I can ask her if she's going to do that again for the April town meeting. So at least that article would be published there.
Maybe a
And
planning
then,
board press release,
That's what I think.
you
In
know?
February.
yeah,
We could even do it, maybe before the next meeting on April 7th. Could have a press release just listing the articles that are coming forward, and that there'll be one last public hearing on April 7th for anyone who wants to attend or ask questions.
I can try. I have submitted press releases in the past that haven't been publicized, but
Oh, okay.
I can ask.
It's funny because very few people are on the town email, I think, and know about things, but I don't know. Once they become involved, then they add themselves, but I guess in the past, maybe they never had a reason to question anything. But, so my changes that I made were just the definition stayed the same.
Mm-hmm.
I had considered data processing center and record storage. That might have to be special permit, because if you read the definition, I feel like that could be interpreted as a data center.
Right.
And so if we had a definition for data center, but someone comes in and says, well, no, I'm just data processing center. I'm just pulling up the definition. Data processing and record storage, an establishment providing business services such as but not limited to payroll processing, financial transactions, document prep, management and operation of computer facilities or internet service providers. I mean, I feel like operation of computer facilities sounds like a data center in my mind.
It's not necessarily, it's storage, but like I think about a payroll company, which is data processing. And yeah.
But what would operation of computer facilities be other than a data center? Bob?
Cybersecurity?
If I may, I just have one question. Has any board member spoken to somebody who runs a data center or runs a data processing center so that your definitions are going to be accurate? Because
So-
if you guys don't have any experience in this, something's going to get missed.
So I actually, my professional career is setting up data centers.
Oh, good. Then you're all set. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yep.
Bill, for
Yep.
saving us. But I actually have friends who have, they manage and own the property of data centers. So I have spoken to them.
I mean, instead of making data processing center and record storage special permit, we could take out operation of computer facilities, just take out that. I mean, do you think operation of computer facilities, is that a data center? What else would that be?
I mean, I wouldn't put that only because operation, data centers usually operate on themselves, right? I would think operation would be something like, somebody sitting in their room and typing away. That would, to me, that would be operating. They're doing something with the computers. In most of the cases in a data center, it's just a server, a bunch of servers sitting there spinning their wheels.
Yep. Okay, so do you think, Bob, if someone came forward with a data center, they would not be allowed under the data processing and record storage? In your opinion, if you were,
I can't answer that right now. I mean, I'd have to see both definitions, and
Okay.
it's going to be up for you folks to make those definitions as clearly defined as possible. Because like we've all said, there are, the technology moves faster than your ability to change the zoning code.
right,
And there will always, always, always be a gray area.
Yeah.
So when you're doing the definitions, you've got to be as careful as you can. I can't speculate to any kind of what ifs that are coming down in the future.
that's a definition that's already in there on page 740.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't
it's a
have it in front of me.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if between this meeting and the next meeting, maybe Bill, you could read it, and maybe Bob, you can look at it and say, now, would somebody read this and think it's a data center? I'm just trying to make sure
Um,
there's no back doors.
But we can't modify that definition because we haven't discussed it previously.
Right.
I already advertised the public hearing notice again for
Right.
April 7th. So I'd hate to add another definition that we're changing at this very late hour.
Okay.
We'll see, let's see how I have it as special permit. If we thought that that definition was a data center, then that would fall under, we already advertised that we're gonna, we have the definition for data center. This is just the use table, which we already had. So I
Yeah,
would
but
think,
now,
I think to
now
Lori's
we're
point, you
we're
want to
changing a
change-
definition that we haven't previously discussed, or the use table for a use that we hadn't previously discussed.
Mm-hmm.
Data processing center and record storage.
as long
I
as
think we can
that
still
can't,
save that for the fall,
right,
right? If we think there's a problem with it. But I think the whole intent here was to get this definition in because they are being built and we don't have a definition right now. Right. So at least getting the definition in there, gives Bob, when they come up and say, well, I think it's a data processing center, right? It gives him some ammunition to say, no, it's a data center, which we didn't have before.
okay,
I could always, if it's not if the use is not clearly defined in a published part of the zoning code, I can't allow it.
Mhm.
So, whether or not you have something now or in the fall, if somebody comes to me with a data center and if it's not specifically allowed, okay, I have to say no.
okay.
Okay, and let the boards figure it out. Okay, in this case, it would be the ZBA. And I understand you wanted to get it in, but like Laurie says, that's you're bringing up a lot of stuff that hasn't been advertised, and I'm getting into Laurie's department, which I don't want to do. But put a 6-month moratorium on it if you're not comfortable with getting the whole thing ready.
So is that what we should do? That was one of the things I was gonna bring up. Instead of planning board here, we change it to a no. We put the definition in with a no, and then we have 6 months so it's prohibited. And then we have 6 months to a year to work on the rest of it.
That buys you a significant amount of time.
Can you just hold on that? Because are you distinguishing between data center and data processing center? Because they're used interchangeably here.
That's what I was asking. I was
Ne-
asking if a data
Okay.
processing center, if a data center would fall under the definition of a data processing center.
And it sounds like you guys need to really clearly delineate between the two.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. That's what I was trying
So,
to clarify.
so Carter and Bill came up with the data center definition, which is great. And then we have to decide as a board
do we go forth and allow it by special permit with some of the criteria we're discussing? Or should we wait and we'll read Southborough, we'll read Mansfield or Marshfield, and then have a no here, and then it is prohibited till the next town meeting?
Well, I mean, to me, it sounds like we don't have a clarification between the two. So on the conservative element, it would be safer, in my mind, to put a no until we get that.
Yeah, I mean, when I created these, I took all of those into account when I created it, right?
Okay.
Like, like Amy has right here, right? The fact that the special permit that actually came from the Mansfield one,
Mm-hmm.
right? And having the special permit, um, and creating the separate rules for the electricity and the noise and everything else.
When we went through
So,
ours, so we had adequacy of electrical and adequacy. And the Mansfield and Southborough have gone one step further where they actually set up that you have to say that they have to submit, and Lori mentioned in an email today that maybe this should be in the rules and regulations,
right.
that they have to submit all these processes.
Yeah, no, and I
I
think that
think
makes perfect sense.
With numbers.
I think it may be a challenge because remember in Mansfield they have their own electrical company, whereas in Northborough we have National Grid. So some of this might not make sense for a community that gets its electricity from National Grid.
Hmm.
But some of the
Well,
towns said it's still good to know.
yeah, because what can happen is based on the electricity that they're utilizing, that's some of those calculations are what they'll use for then the water use, right? Because based on the electrical use, that's going to generate so much heat, which has to be dissipated by the water use, right? So generally, the electrical use is how they'll determine the quote unquote size of the data center. And I know there are different definitions. I think there's a micro, there's a um, I know there's a major, which we don't
Macro?
have any plots here that would be able to have that, but there are
I
different
was referring
levels.
to more letter B, because this is a determination from National Grid of sufficient electric capacity on the entire grid. So I know that they do that for solar farms, but I haven't seen that done for other types of uses.
I just added Marshfields or Mansfields, I keep forgetting which one it is. And I thought as a board we can go through and see which ones apply to our town and which ones do not. And it is great that Iron Mountain right now is actually using the closed loop so that it's not drawing on water. But that could be a requirement that our board says, is that it has to be a data center that doesn't draw water. They can do the closed loop system. I mean, I just wanted to bring it up as things that we talk about to make sure it fits our town for what we want, because it did seem like there are a lot of people who really don't want a big data center that's going to draw a lot of water and make noise, because they Iron Mountain is only 21,000 square feet, but like Bill said, some of these other ones are like 2 million square feet.
Well,
Not that we
you would
could fit
never,
that here.
yeah,
Right,
you would never, we actually have one of those facilities out in Lowell. You would never fit that facility in Northborough.
right.
There's no lots that would fit that type of facility. I mean, this facility out in Lowell is actually the old Prince spaghetti factory
Hmm.
that they converted into a data center. It's massive.
But as a small town like Northborough, maybe we would want to say that they can't be over 50,000 square feet. You know, it's up to us as a town. We can prohibit them, we can allow them, we can set a size limit.
Yeah,
For now, we can.
Yes,
yeah,
for
and
now.
again, keep in mind that the biggest thing is not really the size, it's the electrical that's being
Draw.
pulled in.
Yep,
The electrical draw, right? The maximum electrical draw, because
water.
that's how they're going to determine. And that number will change, right, as technology grows and grows, right?
right.
So you could have a 5,000 square foot, mini facility, right? But, it could draw 50,000 megawatts, depending on what type of servers and devices you have in there, right? If you're running something like AI, those are pretty small devices, but they have a huge draw.
So
So,
that's why we would want an estimate of electrical demand.
right, you would definitely want that estimate of, and any data center is going to know what that electrical demand is going to be, what that maximum electrical demand is going to be. They probably would have already talked to National Grid, but we would definitely want to see that paperwork.
Mm-hmm. What
Because
do we want to do for this year's town meeting, though? Do we want to have a moratorium? Put in a definition and have a moratorium, or do we want to review certain criteria and talk about it on April 7th and go forth with allowing it by special permit, but with criteria?
Would you need to do it as a moratorium or just say no?
I would just say no, because I don't know if we could do a moratorium right now, because we didn't, that's not in the ad
yeah, I
for
think
the warrant article.
Correct.
I'm in board with that.
Just saying no, add the definition and say no
Yep.
yeah,
For now.
for now. Okay. And then the next town meeting, we'll look at all the details and we'll be able to see what, a whole bunch of towns will probably go forward with them this year. And we can see what they did.
Mhm.
Yes, Bob?
If I may, just so that the board knows, nobody has approached me or anybody else in town that I know of has approached anybody about bringing one of these to town at a specific address. Nobody's contacted me. Nobody's done a zoning interpretation form. I don't have anything on the horizon. I haven't heard a rumor or anything. So just, just take that into consideration.
It's really good to say publicly because I didn't see it, but I heard there's a petition going around about no, like, I think somebody does think there's one coming.
Well, I mean, we
I
got to keep
haven't
in mind
heard.
there's one here. There's one here, right?
Yes,
There's one already here, right?
right,
Even without this definition. So
Mhm.
that's
Right.
why we're doing the definition.
Right.
right. Okay,
Yeah.
it does sound easier just to have the definition with the no for now.
Yes.
Okay, that makes it easier for April 7th also.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so April 7th, we have the cell tower. And on March 25th, I think everybody here got the email, but I'll say it out loud for anyone in the public. But there'll be a balloon test up on Green Street. Is it 409 Green Street from 2 to 6 o'clock?
That's correct.
And the cell tower is gonna be about 130 feet. But the
And
balloon will shout.
the rain date is the same time the next day. So Thursday, the 26th.
Okay.
Can
And
you
before we
explain
move
to
on,
me-
I should actually make a vote to continue the one public hearing we just opened for the open space, before I forget. So, sorry, but do I have a motion to continue the public hearing to the proposed amendment to zoning bylaw 709-020 site design standards
So moved.
to April 7th at 6 o'clock? Sorry.
So moved.
Second?
Okay. And Lori, I said 6, but we can, you put the cell tower first and then the zoning.
Yep.
Okay. Roll call vote, Bill Pierce,
Aye.
Millie Milton,
Aye.
Carter Brannon,
Aye.
Amy, and I'm an I. I'm calling myself. All right. So next meeting, we'll have the cell tower, we'll have the zoning bylaws. We're gonna open all of them up again in case somebody has any questions. And then Lori, do we have any A&Rs, lot releases or bonds?
Can I have a quick question about what
Sure.
that balloon release is about? I haven't experienced that.
Yeah, so what they're gonna do is they're gonna put up a balloon up at the height of 130 feet, and they're gonna take pictures of it. So it's gonna be up there for 4 hours for anybody, any of the abutters. So we are sending a
Okay.
balloon test notification to all of the abutters in addition to the public hearing notice. Yeah, so if you're interested in viewing it yourself from various angles in the town, in the vicinity, then you can do that. If you aren't able to make it, then certainly they will be providing photos to show what it looks like from various locations.
And how many feet?
130 feet.
And when you decide what the abutters are you looking at what the visual abutters are or what the actual physical?
I think they're just gonna take pictures from various locations in town.
Okay.
So of course this is the farm. So it's pretty flat and pretty wide open. So it should be visible. So I imagine that they'll go to different roadways and see what the view is like.
But when you notify abutters, it's just a physical abutters, and although somebody who could be within a mile might be able to see it from their property.
Yeah, so it's the abutters that are classified as abutters in the zoning
Right.
bylaws.
That's what I was curious about, is whether or not the 130 feet height elevation changed what abutters actually experience.
Say
Was
that
there-
again?
Well, I guess if you're 130 feet high and a butter from a half a mile to more than the actual physical abutter might be affected.
Correct.
I didn't know if the height changed what the radius of a butteries might be. Because it would seem
let me double check because I know
Was it like 300 feet?
they have already submitted their abutters list, but I'm just curious if the abutters are greater than the usual 300 feet.
based on the actual impact that would happen at 130 feet.
Yeah, I know some municipal bylaws classify the abutters as a greater distance, like it could be 1,500 feet.
Yeah.
So let me, I'm
Maybe you
not
should try a
seeing.
press release on that. And see if there's an article so people won't say, oh, what is that big red balloon in the
Right. I
sky?
didn't know there was going to be a big tower up there. I'm affected by it, but I wasn't notified.
Yeah, I did make sure that this public hearing notice appeared in the Community Advocate because I figured people would want to know, and I did include in the public hearing notice information about the balloon test.
And I'm wondering if going forward, if there isn't some sort of criteria for height impact, whether that should be something we would incorporate into our bylaws or regulations so that we don't have issues with neighbors or properties that would be affected and didn't know.
Is it, if I remember, are they requesting a waiver to go over the typical height limit? Is that part of something?
I haven't reviewed the application yet.
Mhm.
But there is, let's see, the maximum height shall not exceed 125 feet in the industrial highway business, business south, business west, or business east. and shall not exceed 75 feet in downtown business, general residence, Main Street residential, residential C, residence B, residence A. So they must be asking for that
Yeah,
because it's 130 feet. It's not 75 feet.
not at all. So you'd wonder if the abutters notice should have been increased. Because if we granted it and the abutters say we weren't, well, impacted people say we weren't notified, it didn't fit the, yeah.
Now, I suppose half the town could be impacted. I mean, really, when you think about it, it's 130 feet up. So that's
At
a
the top of a
huge
hill.
percentage of the town that's going to be able to see that cell tower.
Maybe once they get the
Half the
balloon,
town is an exaggeration, but
For sure.
you know,
Yeah,
pretty much anybody who's traveling on streets within the vicinity is probably going to be able to see it.
maybe once we get the balloon test pictures, there could be a press release in the Community Advocate with a picture and an article that we're gonna have a public hearing on it, April 7th. And then if people didn't see the balloon in person because they were at work, they might actually see the article in the newspaper.
I mean,
And
that's
that-
something that's gonna affect them if they're looking at their backyard on the weekend and saying, well, there's a great big antenna back there, great.
Hmm. I don't know if we can deny it though, even if we,
I agree, I'm just.
good to let them know.
Just, yeah,
I don't see that the abutters is a larger area than the typical 300.
But it would be good to get a picture in the Community Advocate to get ahead of it. So if people did have questions and concerns, they would come to our meeting.
a picture of a potential tower,
Well, the balloon test
yeah,
would show how high it was.
sure.
I can ask if they do a press release.
And so they put the balloon up there and let it stay for 4 hours, is that what it is? So you can come by anytime during that time?
Correct.
Okay, because I definitely would like to see that.
In different areas of town too, would give you enough time to,
Yeah,
you wonder if you could see it from Church Street.
definitely want to know. Or Faylene. Nothing specific. Yeah.
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
It's good they're doing it this time of year. Well, there's no trees there anyways, but I know when they did the one at Kearney Park, you could see it a lot more in the winter than in the summer because of the
Right.
leaves.
Right. Okay.
But there were ways, I was on the board for the Kearney Park one, and we did try to make it look like tree branches at the top. I don't know if it still does. But so if you were on like Church Street, and maybe it would look like just a big weird tree on the hill.
I've seen those too.
But they might be getting better, maybe it would look like a real tree, which is still better than a metal, steel, silver structure.
Right. Unless it's
So-
the Eiffel Tower, then that's fine.
Mhm. Okay. Lori, I think, were there any A&Rs, lot releases, bonds?
None.
Okay, we had the minutes of March 3rd, 2026. I just had minor edits, Carter had minor edits, and Lori had a minor edit. Does anyone else have any edits?
No,
Don't
Right.
think I did.
What was the change Lori made?
I changed when they were talking about the Ace of Waters mansion. She had mentioned that there was a restaurant, but there's not a restaurant, there's a museum. So
Okay,
I just replaced a restaurant with museum.
sure.
Okay. So does anybody else have any other comments, concerns?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion to approve the March 3rd, 2026 minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second,
Okay, roll call vote. Bill Pierce,
aye.
Carter Brannon,
Aye.
Millie Milton,
Aye.
and I'm an aye, so those are approved. Does anybody have anything else that they want to add? Nope.
Yeah. So, sorry for leaving the meeting. I lost power.
Oh,
So your
Hopefully
whole
it
house
wasn't.
went down?
Yeah, the whole house. Yeah. Hopefully it wasn't a data center using too much electricity or something. But,
That's what I was thinking, like half the town went out last night.
mm,
Yeah.
All right. So, I was hearing none. We will see everybody on April 7th. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second,
second.
Okay, roll call vote. Bill Pierce,
aye.
Carter Brannon,
Aye.
Millie Milton,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. See everybody on the 7th.
Good night.
Good night.
Good
St.
night.
Patrick's
you.
Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.